Hello, everybody, and we're back live here on the internet. My name is Michael, also known as Bardicdice. You guys all know this. It's been so long. We're just gonna have a fun and crazy time tonight. This is our last and final Fates United episode, kind of a post-game Q&A. We did one of these about halfway through the campaign. It was really, really fun. So I figured let's just have a fun night, grab our chosens and our favorite players back together, and have a nice little send-off so you get to have your burning questions answered. I feel like Amar has a few for Kahu that I saw, so I'm super excited to hear some of the burning questions get answered, as well as any that you have for me as well. So just kind of for the formation of the game, behind the scenes, and things like that. So we'll go ahead and introduce our players again, just so they can tag everything that they're in and do any announcements. As far as this stream and this channel, you guys all know that I got a new job, which is pretty work heavy. And a lot of times I can get stuck late. So I'm having a hard time kind of cementing a new schedule going forward, at least one that's consistent. So we're going to go ahead and kind of see how things go. Will probably be a while before we have like a more cemented schedule in the future, but things are going to probably look a little different. So just kind of prepare for that. Bardicdice channel, I'm not going to fully give up on it, but I'm going to take a little break, kind of relax from a 2.5-year homebrew campaign for the first time streaming ever. But I've had such a blast streaming with you guys that we're going to come back in some form or manner. Especially right now, Baldur's Gate is out, as well as Stray Gods, the musical game that has Lord Bailey in it, comes out next week. So maybe we'll have some kind of like chill, just kind of game streams for a little bit until we do some more stuff. So if you want to be notified about what's going on with the future of the channel and stuff like that, go check out our Discord. It's a wonderful place that we hang out called The Tavern. We share it with the wonderful Marquee Gaming stream and so many others. So it's a really fun time that we get to hang out while we're offline throughout the week, especially now that we're finishing up Week United. So make sure to go join there. We have amazing artists and just D&D nerds. We talk about movies. Everyone has the reviews for the, each new movie that comes out and things like that. So it's definitely a fun place you want to go see. Yeah, the Character Simulator 3000, Baldur's Gate 3, which is actually a really good D&D character creator, I'll have to say. For the most part. It needs more, but it's getting there. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for that. Oh, tonight we're going to go ahead and talk about a lot of your questions that you posted. We did have a thread for Fates United, but if you want to go to our Discord, there is a channel for the Fates United where we normally post like gifts and reactions. You're more than happy to still do that there. But if you have any more questions that you think of while we're going through, feel free to post them underneath and just tag me or one of our players if they want to help kind of be a mod or maybe lit or something like that. And you guys can edit them into the one that I have here. I'll go ahead and pin that now, actually. Or I'll hopefully see it. Yeah.
I was going to say, do you want me to also copy paste it into our Discord and then I can do a little check mark emoji by
I'm actually going to edit. I'm going to edit and strike through.
You want to edit it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's fine then. I didn't know if you would.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great idea though. I was actually thinking about a Google Docs thing as well, like so everyone can just edit it as we go. But yeah, so it's just going to be really chill and casual, just kind of laid back night. So feel free to pose questions in the chat if you want, though we prefer in the Discord, because in the chat we might miss it, and we definitely want to get to all the questions like that. So I think that's really it. For other streams that you'll see me in, I'll still be playing Marquee Gaming's game on Sunday that you hear about, and also Dealey, Rachel, and I, and Mark, sorry, play in Lit's Tuesday game. Maybe not for long for Mark, right? Just joking. I don't know, I'm being weird. And Lit's literary _DMs Zelda-inspired game Winds of Calamity on YouTube on Tuesday, so you can still see us play there. It's a lot of fun. So that campaign is still ongoing, so you definitely want to go check that out. As well as you can catch up on all of our VODs if you want to go back and watch any previous Fates United ones on YouTube. Follow us there. The last 2 episodes will be up probably tonight if I don't fall asleep at the computer. So if not, this weekend, because I have this weekend off. So that being said, I've talked enough. Let's go ahead and introduce, for the last time on Fates United at least. Don't worry, they'll be back on the channel, I'm sure. But starting with one of our amazing artists, you can see down below Car, Meikai, and Kahu. She did a lot of the art there. Dealey.
Hi, I'm Deely. I have really happy tavern music playing in my ear very loud right now. Okay, there we go. I do some of the art here, and it's really fun. And it's been really fun over these last 2.5 years. That's a bright light. So it's been super fun. But I probably will never stop drawing Makai and Car and their kids. That's probably just gonna be an ongoing thing. Anyway.
Get ready for spam posting
Check
because you
out
guys have seen the tip of the iceberg of how much art has been drawn about them.
there's a lot. But I'm not gonna be sharing all of it, I'm sure, but like
Spam
here
it,
and there.
spam it.
Maybe over the next few months, as a little baby is here and I'm just like bored and I'm like, I'm not drawing, but have some art. Maybe something like that. Anyways, but yeah, so on here though, I played Makai and she was a monk / paladin in the very end. And she was super fun and I had the best backhands. And I'll miss those. But I'll forget how to play a monk and a paladin in like a month anyways, so gonna learn it all over again in the future. And that's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Deely. Minkai has been an amazing part of the game. So going over to our second artist, she's one of the more official artists of this channel, this game at least. Deely did the Wild Beyond the Witchlight one. Rachel, you can see, did the official character art around everyone's profiles there. But Rachel, why don't you introduce it?
Hi, I'm Rachel, also known as Pip. You can find all my art on Twitter and Instagram under Pip400arts. I've been trying to be a little more active, so we'll see. I know I always say that and then I'll like lapse, but for like this week I've been more active, so you can come follow me there. In this game I played Anais. She was a ranger cleric for most of it, and then I changed her near the end to just be full cleric. So that's what she ended up as. And yeah, she is cool now.
Always cool, but
She can
even
control
cooler.
the weather. I'm still really pumped about that. I just like if you could control the weather, that'd be great. So the fact that she can do that is just.
So you're the Halle Bailey of Organia now. Just what's her name? Storm from X-Men.
Oh, I don't know. I never watched X-Men, so.
So, guys, that's the last time you'll ever see Rachel on the Bardicdice channel. So say goodbye.
I'll just log off
now. Perfect. So yeah, and then heading on down below, he's always the wise one of our group, giving us the emotional beats of our story. John.
Hello, I am John, also well known as Deely's husband, and I played Kahurangi, who was the chosen of the ocean. Durna. Yes, Durna. So many names.
I know.
I don't have my notes in front of me. I should have pulled them out. But he was chosen of the ocean. Kalishtar fighter. He was a fighter for pretty much the entire time up until the very end. I took a 2-level dip in cleric
Cool.
for some story beat notes that I felt turned out really nice. And yeah, if you made it last week, there was some big things that happened to him. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should go and watch the last episode. Or the last 2. I mean, come on. Support Bardicdice. And other streamers who work so hard to put these kinds of stories together. It's awesome. Anyways, I love being there. Loved playing. I'm going to miss it. I'm happy to answer any questions people have. And I hope we can have a great evening together.
And last but not least, he's my DM going forward. The man, the myth, the random of the mystical game of magical game of mystical mishaps. The Marquis of Mark. Go ahead.
The Marquis of Mark. Yes, that's
me.
me.
The Marquis.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mark. The other side of Marquis Gaming with Rachel. And as was mentioned, we do have a game we play on Sundays on our Twitch channel called Mystical Mishaps. It has Rachel, it has Mike, it has 2 other awesome players in it, and it has chat involvement, which oftentimes involves, I see D and Lit in there giving stuff away. So That's fun. And a lot of other people. Good times. But Sundays, 7 p.m. CST. That's where we play it. And I played Zachary here. He was a sorcerer bard. And yeah, that was his story.
Thank you guys so much. I just want to give all of my players a huge thank you for everything that you've done for Fates United. You guys have created a wonderful story with me alongside in this new homebrew. First time ever doing it for me, especially on stream. You guys added so much story and weaved everything into the settings. This would not have been it. I love you so much. And I love all of you guys at home. You guys are our family. I mean, we literally started this channel together, basically with Fates. I think we were like under 100 followers, and now we're like, well, over 500. You guys have been here since the beginning, and I just want to thank all of you, especially, I mean, Jiv, Lit, Amara, I mean, Steak Well Done, Vix, all of you guys have like been around almost like since the beginning, and I mean, I literally can't sit here all night and just say everybody. But all of you, thank you so much, because you're the reason why I pushed through so much adversity wanting to continue this game. There's many times with internet issues and moving and just life where I could have easily given up, and so to you, we pushed through and told, I think, a really fun story. So just thank you guys so much for everything you've done, and I'm excited to see what kind of goes forward. So that being said, let's have some fun, and for the last time, we'll play the intro.
Threads of fate, strings of time, metal clash as they climb. Champions of the sky, sun, moon, ocean, ally. Seek the path where darkness hides, corrupting all the good inside. They will travel the hard way, igniting light through the untamed. Wilderness won't disguise the elements sent to destroy the fragile weave of destiny. Just one of the many evils sent to break the world. Protect them as legend unfolds. Pull on threads of fate, strings of time, metal clash as they climb. Champions of the sky, sun, moon, ocean, ally. Seek the path where darkness hides. Bring light to where evil abides. Come on, roll the dice. 'Cause heroes take the fight.
If I can figure out how to go back. Okay. Yeah, wait, we're streamers. Also, I just wanted to say a quick shout out. I wish I had my whole list in front of me. But there's like so many people that I just wanted to thank. Arcane Anthems for the amazing intro song that he created for us. Thanks to D and John. They're the ones that were behind actually creating or getting this commission for us. So just super awesome. The music that we've done, a lot of it's kind of just royalty free, but it's just been really fun to be able to use a lot of that. Some of the maps. Shout out to Magic the Gathering, because apparently, I don't know, I'm still doubtful, but Magic the Gathering Wizards say their art is usable because it's not copyrighted. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably get hit up one day about that. But different stuff like that, and just kind of all the content that people have been able to let us share. Gosh, I'm trying to remember his name. It's Will. Oh, I'll post it again. I might have even put it in the About Me down below in the Twitch. So there's a few people there. I don't want to mess up my screen. But there's a few people that I want to shout out and say thanks, because they gave us permission to use the amazing art that they've posted online for different things in Fates as well. So I've tried to use as much original content as I can, but not being an artist, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So anyways, that being said, tonight's game could be pretty, or not tonight's game, tonight's session, just a post-game wrap up and talk about. So we're just gonna be pretty chill. I will talk to you guys in chat and just kind of go around round robin, kind of just make it pretty easy. So there were a few directed towards players, and we'll go ahead and go through there, and then we'll just kind of go round robin, and you guys can ask me questions, I'll ask you guys questions. If there's anything you guys in the chat want to throw in there, please go to the Discord and just kind of post underneath there, and we'll kind of add it to it. Try and go through those, and honestly, guys, it's just for us too to just discuss your favorite parts, burning questions you had. I kind of want to know more, like what if questions, things like that. So, I'll just go ahead and just jump into it. So, also, I was gonna play really jammy music and like lo-fi, but Mark had a good comment that if it gets muted, then you can't listen to anything that people say. So, a good point. But yeah. So okay. So the wrap ups, starting with, and we'll just start kind of like intro. So Dooley, this one, most of these from the beginning were from Lit, but they're saying right off the bat, we're going right into it. I know you love romance stories, especially enemies to lovers. So I'm curious how surprising the relationship with Carr ended up being with you. He did go on to say, despite all the memes, it was genuinely enjoyable to see and worked well for the story. But yeah, how surprising was the Carr thing for you when it started?
I think I answered this in our like halftime Q&A too. But then I don't even know if Carr was resurrected at that point yet, or maybe he was. But yeah, it kind of, I mean, John and I talked excessively about, Meikai and Kahu and like, not planning, but like talking so much about like how the two characters could get along and like what if scenarios of like, well, if these kinds of events happen in the story or these kind of story beats happen, then I could see that, and even after Carr died, we had a lot of discussion. And then Carr came back. And then it was great. And I just really leaned into it because I don't think I've ever cried over a character death as much as I did then. And I know it sounds so dramatic, but like I surprised myself with that, like how much I got attached and how much I really liked that for her and her story.
One of the hardest
it was really
deaths
surprising
that I've ever had to do as a DM, because it was like 2 weeks knowing I'm about to kill like the puppy in your eyes, essentially. Like ruh-roh, this is not gonna go well.
Yeah, and I think it worked really well for her. So, and just like her healing process. I think Kahu also could have worked really well too, but I think with Carr, it just like fell into place more. So, yeah, it was really fun because I've never like romanced an NPC before, except like in video games, obviously. But like, so it was fun. Got a little, excited about that and yeah, all the art. So.
So, was that surprising to you? How much it ended up influencing the rest of the game then as well, opposed like the second half? How much that kind of dictated things?
I feel like I tried to like not make it like a center point for her, like not concentrating on it. And I know that like I talked to him here and there in like downtime in the book, but I never wanted it to be like, look, I'm doing this right now and this is all we're concentrating on, So there was that. But I think it did help kind of focus Meikai into like, help me focus into like what I wanted for her for endgame stuff. And kind of like helped me like think way more about the, post fates, like what would she be doing a lot more. So I don't think she would have taken over Hanasuka and like been the leader there if she didn't have Carr as, her like second. So I think it would have been a little too intimidating for her.
Maybe we'll come back to that because I have follow-up questions on kind of Meikai. I was kind of curious, and you can think about it while we kind of go round robin, but what Meikai's story might have been without Carr. It's kind of like the second one, so maybe a what if on that. Real quick, because I think it's kind of fun since we're just on the subject to just go ahead and broach it, because there seemed to be a lot of maybe even just like potential relationships that could have happened in the game that didn't. And since they're all pretty much centered around Kahu, we talked about Meikai already. Rachel, what about Anais? And I know at one point there was there seemed to be some chemistry with Anais and Kahu. Anything on that, or like kind of maybe what changed with that over the time? So especially since Anais ended up with Zachary.
Yeah, well, I had 3 options I was revolving around in my head the whole campaign. Zach was always an option. Kahu became an option. Connor was a ship I had in my head for a long time before we even found him. So, and like Anais was so numb the whole time. It was one of those like, I have no way of knowing what she'll choose, because when she will choose someone, or if she chooses someone, it will be when she feels more healed, and she's just not there yet. So it was, I felt that I would have conversations with Mike, I have conversations with Mike, and I have conversations with John about like, I don't know, maybe it's a possibility. And ultimately I think, Kahu and Anais felt like they had some chemistry, and then, kind of out of character, I had ended up deciding I don't really enjoy doing PC romances with other people that aren't my husband. And that's not a slight at anyone that does that. It's just not comfortable for me. So so that kind of got taken out of the mix, not really for money character reasons. And then with Connor, I felt like he was a good option, but afterwards, like Mark and I had talked a long time, and we both realized that like Anais and Zach, when they're stable and happy, are extremely compatible. They have common goals, they have common passions and interests. They, pursued, they were there for each other the whole time. So ended up with Zach seeming the most compatible. But it was definitely like I don't know, like up till probably the third to last episode, I think.
Yeah, it was like really late in the story that I was like, well, I don't know what direction she's going. I remember in the volcano stuff early on, I think Zach and Anais had like a chess game. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh. But then right after that, it's when like Kahu and Anais started having like the like, hey, fight me, like relieve your stress here, like I can take it. So it was like this both like, I could see it both ways. So yeah, it was really fun to kind of watch that develop and where that goes. Which then I think wraps around to John then. Kind of a two-part question. One, you have started the game with Amaya. So you definitely had something going on for Kahu already kind of involved there. How was it for you, I know having so much talk in the beginning about Meikai and Kahu, but then having that potential with Anais. And then how it felt for you there, or also just how you ended up kind of rounding up with Alana at that point. Kind of your thoughts throughout the game with that.
Well, I think the main takeaway here is I didn't want Kahu's story to dictate or control anybody else's characters or their stories. Right, and I think when playing, it's critical to make sure that everybody at the table feels comfortable and feels that decisions being made are decisions that allow everybody to feel like this is how I want my character's story to end, and this is how I personally feel would also be fine for me. So all of that kind of rolled into, everybody's decisions kind of got made, and then I was like, all right, I still have a story, I still have a tale I can weave in here, and so I just kind of worked with the tales that I could pull together. And with the Amaya situation, like, I liked the idea that there wasn't a for sure answer for Kahu, especially early on in the game. Right, so I kind of allowed for that story beats to occur the way it did, because I wanted Kahu to be able to share that story of moving past this person he cared for, and to be able to find a different method of healing.
And I think Amara Megan sums this up perfectly. Chat wants to know if Kahu's marriage strictly political with Alana.
So originally, when they first got married, it was definitely more political marriage. And in my mind, over time, as they worked and did so much work together and served their countries together and stuff, that political marriage did become one where they truly had kind of a deeper connection with one another. And they became, they actually loved each other by the end of it. And so when everything happened at the end, for them, it would have been a very bittersweet thing. It's something they would have... I didn't have enough time to explain it all, but at the very end of it, in my mind, they had some very deep and long discussions before the final decision was made of moving on.
That was a beautiful woven kind of story there. I think just full circle about that from beginning to end. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, so I'm interested to kind of ask a little more deeper about some of that stuff for you, because I can't remember, was your goodbye to Amaya like the final one? Wasn't that after the last Q&A? If I remember correctly? Or was maybe
The
around
final
that
goodbye
time?
to Amaya was after I began repairing my relationship with my brother.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly where the Q&A fell in our story now that I think about it. I think that was before that. So, anyways, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really fun to see, because I don't think any of us really necessarily started the game thinking like romances would be a big thing, but it was kind of fun to see that everyone just kind of ended up in one, and we're really happy with it. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, thank you, John. Heading over to Mark. Lit says, I'm genuinely curious, at any point would Zach have left the party, or was he close to doing so at any point?
I mean, overall, I'd say no, because he was always committed to keep working with the other three.
Mm-hmm.
I would say he was definitely at a point where he was close to forsaking like the affinity stuff
Mm-hmm.
and being done with that and trying to pursue other means. But he never was gonna leave the other three unless they were like, Zach, you need to go. Like
Mm-hmm.
that would be what would send him away. It wasn't like he was gonna quit on them.
Mm-hmm. That was fun, because yeah, I do remember there was a few points where it almost felt like it could have been a thing. And I knew, like, at the end of the day, I don't think you would have. But it was almost like Zachary had different paths to take, and it was interesting to. To me, it was interesting to see how dedicated he was to getting the stones over his family too, and how hard that was for him. So that was kind of one thing. Like, I know, looking back as a DM, I wish I had found a better way to resolve his story a little earlier, even though I know he was dragging his feet for so long, being like having wanted it to be one of his last things. But I would have loved to give you that opportunity to, you know, have that closeout, to see Zach kind of more happy and stuff going forward. So that was kind of something to see. But it was like it was really fun to see that arc played through with him. So that was really fun. Sweet. Anything else you want to add on that, or you good?
Oh, I'm good.
Man of simple words, I love it. Lit had a question for me. I guess we'll go ahead and hit on that one real quick. Lit was saying, what are some things you would do differently in terms of world building? Could be anything. Yeah, that's a big question right there. That's a huge question. So you guys know this is my first homebrew. Well, it's not my first homebrew game. It's my first completed homebrew game. I had attempted to start one prior to this with 9 people based on a Taldore game that I kind of homebrewed, like, all of their stories together. Brittany was in that one. Huge group. It was just lots of lessons learned where, like, 3 players wanted this thing, 3 players wanted this thing, 2 players just didn't know what they wanted. So it was like that kind of thing where I thought, like, I was just like the worst DM ever, and like I was time to just, like, I was never gonna DM ever again. But I had so many people come back to me saying they enjoyed the stories that I'd kind of woven together. And that's one of my favorite things, is to take the backstories that you guys have and find ways to weave them into my world of different ideas I have. So I think there's a joy of homebrewing, but world building specifically, I would be way more prepped and organized than I was coming into this. I just kind of had an idea that you could be kind of, I kind of survive on my improv and like, oh, well, we'll just, like, you know, go with it on the spot. I realized I got a really bad memory. So timing's a bad thing for me. Age is a bad thing for me. Or sometimes I can get things mixed up when I say it once in the moment versus my notes if I can't find them in the moment. And that's really frustrating, I think, for people who are relying on that information or trying to get invested in it. So for me, I wish 2 things. One, I had been more detailed on my timeline and like history and just That's something I really like about Mark's games. Like, I always feel like there's like a legit history and timeline. It makes me feel grounded in it. That's something I've learned from him. But also, not reinventing the wheel. That's something I came into Fates being like, oh, I got this really cool idea, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm not gonna use any other book, and I'm gonna make races be their own new thing. And like, it's okay to just use other people's stuff as well as like inspiration and stat blocks and mesh things and take what you like here and drop what you don't like and kind of utilize that, because when you're starting over from scratch, it's not play tested. It's not, you know, unless you're like good at that kind of stuff and writing your own modules and been doing it for a long time. For your first time ever, that was just a struggle for me. So like, I know going forward, like any I did for second campaign, I got like books on books on books and PDFs I got from Kickstarters. Like, oh, I like this idea. This kind of jives with what I want to do with it. Let me kind of take things I like from here and mesh it into my world and kind of make a Frankenstein of it. So that's something I wish I had done, because I had the concept and a timeline out. And I might even like release the timeline one day to you guys and just let you see how different the game looks. Because I had like 1 through 5, all that kind of stuff, and just how wildly different it looks. Just reacting to things. And then the last thing, I think we talked about it last time. I would have done the Centaurium and intro stuff different. I think it was a really cool idea, but we delayed the game so much and delayed, I think, letting the team come together so much, and then also had just so much for you guys to do that it didn't have like a really organic, I think, time for you guys just to be your characters in the beginning without having this oppressive stuff on you. So that's just kind of my first takes on world building. We could probably talk about that for hours, and maybe in the future with some of Bardic Brews, we will like go more deep into that. Yeah, any questions you guys have on like the world building aspects or anything like that? You want to chime in or ask each other about that? Just open it up for a second.
The goblin guy with all kinds of goblins. Is that a hint at the world going beyond where we were at, or is that just for fun?
It was actually. That was directly taken from Critical Role, because I already knew that going forward I wanted to mesh more worlds together, and that I wanted to tie Varys from Adore, but that he had gone to like another world and then came here. So if you watch Critical Role, there's when the Mighty Nine in their second campaign go to Xhorhas, there's a goblin, I think, that has no arms and has feet. Because mine was no feet with arms, right? It was like the opposite. So it's just like a tongue-in-cheek, because I thought, to me, that was one of the funniest times on Critical Role, where like they just weren't expecting Matt to come out with like, hey guys, you know, like this kind of like character that Matt can just pull off. And it was one of those like, yeah, I'm going to do that. That's really fun. My players aren't watching. They're not going to know what's happening and find it funny. And I rolled a nat 1 on like just making it funny for them. So it was supposed to be just a tongue-in-cheek, like, well, maybe there's 2 of them, and it happened at the same time where it duplicated him, like whatever the lore is. But he kind of just took over this place, and this is my little goblins that were here, and they just kind of took over. Like, instead of having goblins be a raiding party that's always there, kind of like, you know, messing with towns, it was just like, well, what if they just took over an abandoned site and turned into like a Western spa sort of thing? Like, just something really silly. And it didn't just quite land, because I know there was like lore I had in the back of my mind that I thought was funny and worked-ish. And then I also just didn't present it right in the moment. And I think I was really tired that night on like the giveaway. And like, I don't even remember talking about multiple ones of him, but I guess I said that in the stream. And it was supposed to be him just kind of showing up in different areas, but I messed up with that. I think the other thing was...
he had like a zip line thing.
Yeah, he had a zip line, and then I think at one point I was thinking about using Mercer with that one guy in the shop. He had like 5 copies of himself. I was like, well, what if they're like, what if he learned how to copy himself to do things? And I don't know, it didn't execute at all. So yeah, that Puma, oh, you know, he's one of those guys. It was just my nat 1. It was like my worst part of this game looking back. It's really cringe. So yeah, that was supposed to be kind of a hint that there are other worlds out there, because, and kind of teasing towards, I know Tim has a question going towards this. I wanted it in my next world. I want to make something where any game I ever play can tie into my homebrew, whether it's module or multi-class, or we talk about other people's games, because Wizards has that idea of that every single table that you play at, let's say you're playing Curse of Strahd, you have the official Curse of Strahd, but my table, Rachel's table, and Dealey's table of Curse of Strahd are all multiverses of the same universe. So I kind of had that idea of like, well, that'd be kind of interesting. Like, if anyone ever wanted to jump in, let's say, a Beacon's Aura character, but not Mark's version, but like a multi-version character, and have them pop into my homebrew, that'd be a way to do it. So that's kind of why I tied it into the Critical Role one. And it was like, this is a multiverse version of the guy from Matt Mercer's world. So yeah, it didn't land. So sometimes that happens.
I feel like if we saw that, like, I didn't see that episode with that, and so I feel like if I saw it, I would have been like, oh, this is like the
That's
Goblin.
a fun callback. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because like there was other things that you like threw in there that was like, oh, hey, that's kind of like sprinkled this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, did the Goblin City get destroyed? Like, are they still there? Are they not affected by like?
Who wants to roll the D100?
Oh no. I will,
I'll
because I
take
asked.
that risk.
All right.
Oh, John, you do it because you can read percentages.
Because
I'm gonna get
technically,
another 4 to 40.
it was kind of on the edge of the plains and Solstier, and they both got pretty roughed up. But
Will the people allow him to live? 80.
80, you know, in the valley, yeah, they're all right. The spa survived,
They
and
survived.
you know, maybe
They're
a
just
few
in there
buildings.
drinking.
Yeah, they had some
Little
repairs to
Waterloo.
do, and maybe one of the spas got cracked. But yeah, you're fine. Here, she come on over. So yeah, no, thank you for asking. That's always a really weird one for everyone. I was like, don't worry, I'll explain. I'll explain it at the end. My bad. So yeah, let's see. That was that one. Let's find one for you. What well, that is your question. Well, yeah, that was my question earlier. So Meikai, without Carr, if that had happened, where do you think Meikai's story would have ended up? If Carr had stayed dead in the beginning, you guys hadn't like fallen in love with him. What do you think the what if for her would have gone?
My silly answer is Zach. That's not real. But all
Zach
the memes at the beginning, I
Hyman.
was like, no. I think I will say, my original idea was to have Meikai like break up with Carr, of like, oh, we can't be together because of the Chosen's thing, right? And so it was originally going to go in that and have like this like little like school romance thing, and then like completely cut it off. But then he died, right? But I think, like I said, Kahu, John and I talked a lot about Kahu and Meikai, and how their stories were really compatible with healing, and, you know, June dying and Amaya dying. Like, they kind of both, well, Kahu didn't kill Amaya, but he was there for that death, right? So it was like in the arms, and June died like, you know, there in front of Meikai kind of thing. So I don't know. I feel it would have been a slower burn, and it probably wouldn't have even popped up until like the end, probably, John, as well. But yeah, I don't know. We had so many ideas and thoughts, and then it just really
Pre-game
just
art.
out.
That was like my favorite.
There was some pre-game art that I was very proud of. I tried to redraw it with Carr, but it looked like Meikai was pinning him up against the wall, and it just did not work.
I think that's when we like officially like
romantic.
decided. I was like, I think Meikai wears the pants in this relationship.
Yeah. It looks like Meikai's like holding up Carr, whereas the other one looked like it was like a cute like lean in moment. But yeah, I don't know. I feel Meikai, because she's with Carr, she kind of leaned on him a little bit more. Then I feel like if like her and Kahu got together, or like she didn't like get together with anyone until like super end game. But again, I think it fits the story beats with her, so I think that was important. But yeah, I don't know. I know post the first Q&A, it was like I had way more of a better answer for that, but now it's like 2 years ago, and you know, mine's kind of like gone. So if that makes sense.
I like it. No, for real. Yeah, because that's always something I thought shook Meikai out of her slump so early was Car coming back and kind of gave her that healing so much quicker. And that was also something realizing super early, oh, we got some sad babies in this game. And like everyone's going through some stuff, like really, really bad stuff. Whereas like normal games, you kind of have that bad stuff where you're like, ah, it's okay. Like I can get past it. But like I think it really affected everyone. So it was actually kind of nice to see some of the characters kind of come through that early on. Like I feel like Meikai and Kahu kind of healed from that. I think the soonest were able to kind of carry the team a little bit until Anais and Zachary found their own healing. That was like really
yeah. And I think even if Car didn't revive, the fact that they tried, that would have still, I think, given her peace. I think she still would have been sad. And John and I talked at that point of, if he doesn't come back, then I could see Kahu being there to support, because Amaya chose not to come back too, right? So then you have those two similar parallels again with trying to bring someone back and trying to contact, you know, a loved one. So there's that as well. But yeah, it definitely kind of changed my, like, okay, Meikai's not going to be a sad girl for a lot longer. Like, she's okay, you know, she's stabilizing, so.
Fun. I think you did a really good job with her, especially like healing with the horns and kind of seeing that evolution going on was really cool. Raichi, for Anais, this is from Lit as well. How was it playing a character who took a vow of silence? Which I want to add. Yeah, well, I guess he kind of says, yeah, what were the challenges, but also the rewarding aspects? And are you like looking back happy with the evolution of the story from start to finish? With just like mainly about like the vow of silence part.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. It took me some getting used to challenge-wise, because I am usually, I'm going to be the face of the party. I'm going to communicate, I'm going to do stuff. That's just usually the characters I make. And even like the more introverted ones, they'll still take charge and like get things done, or they'll say things, or they'll try to make peace. And so Anais, even if she wanted to, it would have taken her a lot of time and trying to get other people to talk for her or to read her notebook or whatever, which it was a challenge, but I kind of liked it because it was just a different way for me to play someone. And it kind of made me have to focus a little more on like her inner world, or like what's important enough for her to actually get someone's attention versus her just going, they can handle it, like that's fine. And so it kind of very quickly showed me what was important to her and what wasn't. And a lot of times when she would try and get people to speak for her, to ask questions, it was either to get back on track, let's do this, because she was very like goal oriented, or it was to make sure everyone was unified and kind of morally on track. Like those are really important things to her. So that was fun. I do think some of the challenge that I wanted was negated because there was so much psychic connections, first with Kahu and then with the Chosens, which in some way was convenient. In some ways it was like, I almost wish it would have been more challenging so that she was forced to. But I will say, especially with the Kahu connection, I think that was needed because all of us were so introverted that like there needed to be something to connect to, and it didn't happen very often. So like Kahu being able to talk to her was enough for me to get her personality until she was kind of able to be a little more vocal, and by vocal I mean like actually communicating with people. I did like being able to finally talk as her, and I really liked role playing when she finally was able to fulfill her vow. I really liked role playing that she didn't like talking still and like just did not want to. Like that was just really fun to continue that afterwards, and it was almost like something she'd be getting used to again and like not used to doing it for so long. So it was good. I had fun with it.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on being like you said, kind of looking back and be like, yeah, I kind of wish there was more of a challenge, and it almost like negated that way, because I do remember struggling with that, and I think at first it was like allowed as like, oh, you guys rolled really well, okay, yeah, I'll kind of allow like a free sending, and then kind of it evolving. I was like, I remember having a lot of struggles of, like you said, everyone was so introverted, so I remember struggling so early on. I'm like, well, like trying to push the group together more as much as like possible. I was like, well, maybe that's one way, is to allow them to communicate more. So that was, yeah, something looking back, I wish, like you said, I'm not mad that it was a thing, because I think it makes sense to an extent, but made it more like a sending like once per day, or something that was like, yeah, to roll for, put limitations on it, and had it be less of a walkie-talkie thing.
Yeah. Which, granted, there were some great group chat moments with bothering Sundavir and stuff, so I don't necessarily regret that either. But yeah, I know. Yeah, you get what I'm saying.
I think at one point I was like, I justified it being, again, Critical Role is a really big inspiration for me, because that's how I came into the 5e. So again, that's like my first take of like, oh, this is what the rule set should be like, and not that we're going to get into Critical Role and what should be or not be, but that's my inspiration, right? So that's what I knew. So they had earrings that they could just click and talk to each other as long as they're within like 150 feet or like whatever it was. It was like a free message spell. So I think I took that and was like, oh, well, they're chosen, they should be able to like easily do this. So it was kind of like, that's where that rolled into. So yeah, it was something I remember looking back and being like, I wish that could have been tweaked a little bit. Stuff like that. So
yeah,
I think on that for sure. John says, what inspired you to take a fighter class, a class that is usually known for more combat, and make it more of a passive role, in terms of looking to talk things out more than swing a weapon, especially with the story at the end with not being the sword, right?
Yeah, I was trying to portray a character who had dealt with warfare. At some point in his life, he had lost somebody very precious to him because of warfare, and he kind of was like trying to understand the meaning of it, but he had had a lot of retrospection after that event that occurred. I mean, so when you first met Kahu, you'd already had some retrospection on it, which is partially why he would talk in circles so much, because he was in his own head for too long a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying to build this character who his skill was in fighting, his skill was in, hurting others and stuff like that, but he never really, after the event with Amaya, it was never like a passion or a love of his. It was just something he was good at.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of drove the story forward of like wanting him to be someone who's trying to find what he actually is good at, trying to find how to do something different, which is why I did a lot of like the crafting, and I did a lot of the trying to help Anais with her anger, which is something that he had felt before. And then he saw Zach and how good Zach was with talking, and like, oh my gosh, like it just opened up a new world to him to see these solutions being made that went beyond I go, I stab. And so I tried to build and design Kahu's character on paper, and like the runes and stuff I chose to kind of follow along that path of story, and trying to make him grow along with that desire to kind of step away from being just a fighter and trying to become something that did a little bit more.
It was really fun. I really liked how you did that kind of on your own, and you kind of built that story from the beginning for me. And I remember seeing that because, you and Zachary had like the biggest families ever, but you had talked about how, was it the youngest in the family were soldiers, the middle were craftsmen, and then the top were like the oldest were usually leadership. It was really interesting to see, like, you had written the story of how, like, it was obvious that he didn't want the fighting anymore. So, like, after, especially talking about that he was, like, died and reborn, especially with that touch of corruption in the beginning by Virdis, like, that's how I tied you guys together. It was fun to, like, flip that really early on and be like, well, what do you do with a soldier who wants to put down their sword and has the wisdom to do that? You make them a leader, right? Like, you're kind of, that ritual chose you. Like, it made sense for him to be the leader of the group there. So it wasn't my intention to necessarily give all of you guys chances to be leaders. It just kind of happened that way. And I'm glad to see that not everyone did that route, because I think that would have been a little different. So it was really, I'm really happy to see that. I think it worked out really well for, I think, him in particular.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that storyline.
Cool. Zach, Mark, I was kind of curious more with your build with him, like, because we kind of mentioned he did have so much of the game where his family was missing, and of course we did truncate the ending, kind of like smush it together a little bit. So I do know if we hadn't had to, there would have been a lot more RP time, I think, for you to explore what, you know, was going on inside of his head. Is there anything that you feel was left off the table, or something that you want people to know, that because he was so internalized throughout the whole game, like how you built him, what was going on inside of his head, what was his arc that you kind of played out, and maybe it wasn't something that was realized on screen as much, or kind of want to, like, explain to people more and kind of help us get inside of his head? That's something I've been really curious about, kind of your take on it from the beginning.
Yeah, so Zach definitely started off as a very scared and angry kid. Like, that's kind of where he started the campaign. I know Mike and I talked about, like, the ASMRs and how they had a big thing with, like, anger, and, like, how it was kind of the opposite feel with, like, angel boys are now sort of like demon boy type of a thing. So I tried to definitely put that in there a little bit without kind of going into, like, the fallen territory or anything, because there's that whole fallen side of ASMRs in the world too. So he still, like, was trying to be really good, but also dealing with the anger, and then the, like, sadness of losing his family, and the anger of kind of losing his family, and all of that kind of combined. So he definitely was a very quiet character, which was not how I pictured him before the stuff happened with his family. So most of the campaign, people didn't see the Zach that I had kind of envisioned being the real Zach. It was always the Zach dealing with stuff. So he was definitely, yeah, angry, sad, and young. But
Great
he was
mix
very
at times, right?
yeah, he was
really
very
combustible.
determined, though, to kind of stick to what he believed was true and what was right. And he, I think, I always tried to play off the loyalty side of things too, because he was with the group. Like, yeah, he maybe not got along with them the best all the time, but, like, he was still with them, and he was committed to them. And he was committed to those who he felt like were there for him as well. So it definitely was a weird balance to kind of have all of that in there, but always having that kind of shadow hanging over him the whole campaign, and how that negatively affected a lot of things. So it definitely challenged things in the game, I know, and made it maybe more difficult for the group or other circumstances we were in, but always tried to play a little true, at least to kind of that weight that he had on him.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was really fun to realize that with you throughout the game, because I think that's something this is the first time we've played me as a DM and all four of you guys at my table too. So there was a lot of getting to know, like, how you guys were playing and what you expected from the game, what kind of game I'm going to present. That was a really fun challenge, but I think a big reward for, like, uncovering who he really is, and thinking, like, oh, this is gonna this is going to be the right response for him, and be like, yeah, nope, okay. Slam the door on that one. I don't want to do next. And just be like, Mark, let's talk. You know? So, like, that's something that was really cool that we get to learn kind of that communication with DM and player. And it was, like, really, really fun to kind of learn that over time. So, do you feel like there's anything left off the table for him or anything you would have done differently? Or are you satisfied with at least kind of how you played him?
I don't know if I have any regrets on how I played him. It's with how events went down, I feel like it kind of just played out how it played out.
Yeah,
and,
I see what you mean.
If different circumstances would happen, probably would have played out differently. But but with what happened, I think it played out in a way that I'm satisfied with.
Cool. Amar had a really good, I think, roundup for everyone here on this one. No, it's not too late, Amar. Did you guys write backstories for your characters for the DM? Me. And if so, would you consider sharing them with everyone in the Discord? I'd love to see things like Zach's family tree or Kahu's story, assuming they were things written down and sharing. So I think, if I remember correctly, all 4 of you guys did give me something in writing, right? So yeah, I mean, just anyone wants to answer, round robin it. Is that stuff you would ever want to share or anything like that? Or I think you guys have evolved so much from it. It would be kind of interesting to see what the original intent was and kind of where it went. But
I'll just post mine after.
Yeah. I was like, I just brought mine up in my Google Drive, and I'm like, oh yeah, nostalgic.
Yeah, Anais' was really heavy. I think out of all I think probably the most emotional for me to read would be like, oh, this is going to be a game. Like, you know, like just knowing the story that I'm going to have to tell through this was going to be really interesting. So right off the bat, I think Meikai's was one of the first I got back.
5 pages.
God, yeah, you gave me a lore. I was like, look, I'm TDLR this one real quick for me. But yours is one of the earliest, so I was able to, I think, sit on it for so long. And I think Hanazuka had the most time for me to really think about how that story inflected. And I wish I had done that more with, I think, Zachary's and Kahu's, because Kahu's I was struggling with how to make it feel for more fleshed out, which I think it ended up really well. Hopefully. But because I was tying them together, and I don't know if I'm ever going to fully tie people's backstories together again the way I did, fully at least. I do sometimes feel like Zachary's was lackluster because of so much attention on Hanazuka, or vice versa, or like sometimes Kahu might have been overshadowed because Viridis was there. Even though it was cool to kind of like tie in themes together, that was, I don't know if you guys as players felt the same way, but that's kind of something I always look back on and be like, that'd be really interesting to separate them a little bit more. So yeah, how did you guys feel about the tie-ins? Is that something that, I mean, obviously I think we did as best as we can, but yeah, how did you feel about the tie-in on that and the backstory stuff?
I felt with Kahu's story and like the tie-in with Kahu and Anais, I felt like we each kind of had unique arcs that were like a little bit tied into each other's. So I felt, at least personally, for like the Kahu one, it was just fine. Like I felt like I still had a couple of moments that were like my moments clearly. I feel like Anais had some moments that were clearly her moments.
Yeah, I mean, I think at least with ours, it was like we had separate quest lines still. So like Kahu had his thing, just Viridis was like kind of being annoying in the background, you know,
Right.
and then I had my thing and we had resolved Kahu's, so like it kind of played into how it could have helped, you know, whatever. So
cool. What about the Hanazuka guys? Zeikai's backstory.
I think it was a little different than I was thinking, but not in a bad way. I thought it was honestly going to be a little bit more patterned after Anais and Kahu's, where it's that like there's the similar lines, but they're separate. But I know that you kind of like gave out some hints, but I don't think Meikai and Zach really picked up on them as strongly until we were already in there, and then it was like,
Right.
oh, okay. But I don't know. I mean, I liked kind of the wrap up and like, I mean, you had lore for tieflings and ASMRs to have similar, like, come from like the same kind of people,
Mm-hmm.
and so it kind of made sense that like I could kind of see that like connection. Um, but yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and I felt like Makai got to do her thing. We got to find Zach's family, you know. So nice.
Yeah. I definitely, even though it's still going to be the same antagonist, I did want to have a little bit more two parts to Hanazuka that did have to go a little quicker. But it still felt one quest, though, I think. Yeah. What about you, Mark? Any comments on the tie-in?
Yeah, I mean, I just think probably with the timing of how we
Yeah.
had to wrap up the game, it felt a little bit like it was a primary Makai thing, because it was like Makai's backstory, Makai's enemies, Makai's things, and then Zach kind of like had his family in there as like a little add-on. So it felt a little bit heavy on the Makai side, but I mean, with timing of stuff, it makes sense that would happen.
Yeah, because my intention from the beginning was to have it be a lot more antagonistic of you guys trying to figure out who was kidnapping the family, and then realizing that tie-in was her enemy, sort of thing. But it became such a priority for you guys to save the family that you guys did so good that you guys had kind of like protected the whole family before any of that could happen. So like, yeah, that, and then also I think it was me as a DM giving you guys like the storm monster, the stones, and kidnappers, like all at the same time. There's just so much oppressed on you that I didn't want to add more. So like a lot was like kind of pulled back on a little bit. So yeah, that was something I definitely learned. I wish I had given you more breadth of a story to tell. So yeah, that's would have been the plan. I think I would have tied some of that more into the Hall of the Ancients instead, if I had more time to rewrite that a little bit more. So yeah, definitely I think one of my more bigger regrets of the game, which still at the end of the day, I do like how you guys resolved it, but I gotta go to the bathroom real quick, so we're gonna take a really short break, even though it's an hour in. So we'll just go ahead and take a quick break for everyone to go to the bathroom, grab up anything they need to do, kind of just shake off everything. So we'll be right back, guys. We'll just take a quick break. Hi guys, we're back. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. I had to go to the bathroom and feel better. So hopefully you got your snacks and took a break. So thank you guys. Yeah, we had some good questions in the first half. We'll go ahead and jump into more. Thank you guys for all your involvement too. Yeah, if you have any more questions that you do want to ask, hopefully we'll get to them all. But you can put them in the Discord or in the chat as people are helping me kind of organize them a little bit. So yeah, I think we asked most of the directed ones there. So we're just opening back up. So starting with D, if you want to just pick a question to ask everyone or kind of get through and just everyone can answer who they want, we'll just keep on going around.
Yeah, because it's kind of all free for all, right?
Yep. So just because there's a whole list of like the everyone questions and for me questions, so whatever you feel like it.
Sorry, I had to scroll up.
Yeah, and then we'll continue going on round robin so you guys can air questions that interest you. Or vice versa, if it's not on the list and you're just like, I'm just really curious to ask this question about another player or me, feel free to jump in and do that as well.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun questions.
Mm-hmm.
This one's from Amara. What did you pick as your character's lowest stat and why? Did it come back to haunt you at any point? I liked that one. What was Meikai's lowest stat? I don't even remember. I don't, because it like never really came into play, I feel. Let's see. Her lowest stat was intelligence, and it was still a 14. So she's smarter than the average bear. So I feel like for her, it just kind of made sense of like, it never came back to haunt me. I mean, I never really succeeded on a lot of history checks anyways. Even though I'm proficient in history, I still never succeeded. Jeez, good job, girl. But just in that kind of thing, I guess in the ways to haunt, I kind of just played that as like, she's listening to stuff, but it doesn't really mean anything unless people actually explain it kind of thing. And I don't think that was really even a detriment to her. It was just like,
it's not a focus of ours,
Yeah, and with her background and training, like, it kind of made sense that would be her lowest one anyways, because, you know, wisdom being higher, charisma needed to be higher as a leader, I think, than just intelligence as a leader, right? And especially not just, like, a leader, but, like, literally just, like, a public face. You're not really expected to have that, like, intelligence, you know? It's like a beauty pageant queen. I think I made mention of that before. If she had married June, she'd just literally be a face and just expected to have kids. Like, that's it. That's her only applicable, and have book clubs. Like, so yeah, I don't think it was ever a detriment. But I do have a hard time playing characters with like super negative cons, or not cons, but like super negative stats. Like an 8 or a 6 would be really hard for me to play, at least when I made Meikai. But now, I think hindsight, having had characters with that, I'm like, you know what? Like, that would actually be kind of fun. So
maybe next campaign.
Maybe next, we'll have to see.
What about the other three? Did you guys have a stat that you felt like was a low stat that either was a detriment or kind of played into the game really, really hard for your character? You guys rolled really well. Yeah.
Charisma. And I think she was a 10 or a 9 or something. I don't remember what it ended up being. But yeah, I did nothing in persuasion, which is rare for me. And obviously I played her very awkward and like not wanting to talk in front of people and not wanting to interact very much and just hate being in the spotlight. The one particular thing, and it was a detriment, I think, the whole campaign, because there's a lot of things she felt like she needed to say, and she would just deliver it so awkwardly that like it lost whatever meaning she had. Or like someone would be like really nice to her and she'd want to express how much it meant to her, but she'd just go, thank you. And it was just like really flat and it did not express. But the one thing that the moment that it really bit me bad was when Bry found out all this stuff about the Elven assassin, and he was going in a dark place, and I was trying to convince him to like do better and like rise above it. And you gave me persuasion and advantage, and I rolled 2 ones. I was
like, well, right
whatever
back to the
happens,
booze.
happens.
You locked up in that
So,
tower
yeah.
for a while.
I remember just staring in shock, like 2 ones? No. So,
That was
that's
rough
fine.
because I was like, I
rough.
mean, I think Zachary and her had just established at least a friendship already. Like that was
Yeah,
your
they've been
lifeline
friends.
in the Centaurium for a while there. So
Yep. Oh yeah.
woof.
Or a lot of like messaging Kahu in his head, being like, "Please say this for me." I don't want to say it.
Then Amaria showed up, and you're like, "Whoa, elf that can know sign language." Anybody else?
Kahu's was also charisma, but I did at one point do a feat that led me to take additional proficiencies and expertise and things.
Right.
And I used that for giving him persuasion,
Oh, fun.
which I felt was nice because then I was able to build it into his story. And so I
Mhm.
actually used his weakness as one of my story beat elements.
Fun.
And the dice actually like played with it really well for some reason too, because like when I first ran into his brother, I rolled like trash and my
Yep.
stat wasn't great, and so it was really bad. And then when we got to the end, I rolled really well, and I had proficiency by that point, and it just really kind of like gave a nice story beat. So I got lucky.
That was really fun.
The dice decided to be good with me in that circumstance.
Anything for Zach?
I'm just gonna say I just looked at everyone else's like ability scores and I looked at mine, and mine are so much worse than all of yours. Like none of you have anything like below a 13. I have 3 12s.
So I actually had to cheat slightly on my 13. I had to give Kahu a 13 per DM permission so that I could get the feat for the.
So I have 3 12s. No one else has a 12.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess at the start of the campaign it was wisdom because I was I think 11 at the start, and I picked that because he was young, he was fairly sheltered, and he didn't really need to worry about much growing up. So I didn't put that as like a high priority stat for him. And then as the campaign went on, I mean, all the perception rolls like were terrible. And then I think I had him grow up a little bit, and then that's when I gave him perception as a skill, and he got the +1 in there, and we're up to a 12, which is still the lowest in the party.
Yeah. Still, it was really fun to see that though. So I always love seeing people roll that into the narrative more. They're just being like, "Oh yeah, strength is my dump stat," and never use anything, like that. So fine. Rach, do you want to ask a question?
Oh yeah, I forgot I had to prepare that. Let's
You
see.
can skip if you want.
I feel like there's one I really liked that I wanted to answer. I just.
Remember to follow us in the Discord so you
I'm
can
sorry,
catch
I'm
us when we're
sorry. You're
offline.
right.
No, just fine. I'm just gonna fill dead air for a little bit.
Okay, here, yeah, this is the one I wanted to answer. So it was the funniest, most chaotic moment in the entire campaign, and I think you know. I think you all know what the answer is. Maybe you don't. I feel like you'll know when I say it. Tiny Cup. Tiny Cup was the most chaotic moment, and I watched that clip like at least once a month.
I figured that'd be your answer on that one.
I cry laughing every time.
That was like the best stupid passive thought that I had was I'm gonna bring this on stream and Rachel's gonna crack up, and that was my only reason to buying this tiny cup. Best like $5 I ever spent. Honestly.
I'll just never forget, like, you're just talking about a tiny cup, or a tiny cup is brought up, and then suddenly it's just in your hand, like,
That was asked by Tim, by the way, in the chat.
I had orange juice in it too, which was great because that's what Maka was drinking too.
Oh yeah, so for those in the chat who don't know what tiny cup is, so basically there was a scene in the game where this kid hands Dee's character a tiny cup of orange juice, just like a little cup, and then all of a sudden like in the camera, Dee just goes, "Oh, a tiny cup," and then just coming up out of the screen was this tiny little mug, just produced out of nowhere, and I lost it. Like
It was
it was really funny.
I'm so happy you love that because I just like
so good.
went off even better than I thought. I was like, either people are gonna be like, "Wow, it's
That's stupid."
dumb."
Yeah. Or like,
yeah." Or,
I
love
don't
that
know.
one.
Anyway,
Mine were
and then
just
for Christmas, I bought a Santa one.
the Santa one. Yep. My favorite, I think, were just the intros. I think like we had some of the most chaotic and wild intros that just devolved into nothingness. Like, was it ours or was it Beacons that had the stinky cheese face mask thing? Wasn't that Beacons?
Oh, that was this.
That was this, yeah.
That was
one of my
had
most
introduced
chaotic.
That awful cheese and like.
And Mark
I
just like
Oh.
posted it right before we went live, and we're just like,
Oh my
nope.
gosh. Yep.
Yeah, and I was gagging.
It's evil.
So for
gross.
me, it's behind the scenes before going live, where I'm like, y'all, we're going live, all right? Like,
I will say I don't think in campaign we had anything that was like all of us breaking down and being chaotic over something, because that didn't really like track with our characters. We had a lot of silent moments where we were just like but like I wouldn't call it chaos, right? That's just us like okay. Oh, and there's the thing, smart. I'd say it came from peanut gallery comments,
yeah,
us doing stuff
the
out of
offhand
character,
comments, yeah.
but nothing like, oh my gosh, remember when, you know, Anais and Zach went off and did this like crazy thing? Like, it was never moments like that, which was fine because this one was way more serious of a campaign, I think, than like chaotic.
Which was kind of surprising for me. Like, I always know I have depth and realism in my games, but I feel like I bring a lot more comedy and relief to my dark stories. So to have something that's like super dark and gritty and not have that comedy built in, or like have a natural like home, it was new for me. So it was really interesting to kind of commit to that for this one. I'm not saying it's bad, it was just different. So it was interesting. Because you guys see like in Zelda, like I just love being meta. Like that's like I'll break the fourth wall even as Avon whenever I can. But yeah, I think that fits that campaign better than this for sure. Cool. Anyone else want to add anything before we move on? Cool. John, do you have a question? Or want to ask any of these questions?
Yes, the one that I'm looking at was, I think it's from Rachie. Says, have you thought at all about what the characters' kids would be as they grew up, either personality or what they do/accomplish? I haven't thought a ton about personality, but I have thought about accomplishments and a little bit of classes. Thought about for Kahu's son. His son probably would have become like in charge of like a corsair, like a ship, and done like adventures around the world and like continuing the like work with honestly probably Zach and Anais and their whole thing with the Delvers, and basically like being this free roam adventurer type of a guy. And then I think the daughter would have followed in the footsteps of Amaya and would have led the people of New Organia, and would have been known as would have been helping, you know, in more of the political side of things, and would have had much more of a role as a leader throughout the world. Kind of what I thought when I thought about the two kids.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I love seeing all the kids you guys. It was surprising to see how much time you guys spend into some of the kids and stuff in the future. So that was kind of fun. Anybody else?
I feel
I
like
actually didn't think about it. I just wanted
Yeah,
to know.
I didn't think about kids.
That was literally
I love
my
it's such a
answer. I don't even have an
hypocritical
answer.
question.
No. I'm really bad
Wow.
at planning out like future kids for like games. I just barely think about it for some reason. It like doesn't click
It
in my head. So I just
surprises me that so much because you
I
can
know.
like think out so much more, like the clothes and everything else on their, you know, the future of what they do. But like it's when it comes to their kids, it kind of stops there. It's
Yeah, it feels like the
Interesting.
story's ended,
Yeah.
so I don't have any more to plan, if that makes sense. But yeah, I wanted to know yours too. Sorry, I just wanted to say I wanted to hear your too. So.
Oh no, you're good. I was really hoping that you had something because I was anticipating this question the entire time. I was like, John and I have already talked. I really want to know if Mark and Rachel have, but like, yeah. So Meika is the twins, and then she has a daughter. And I've drawn the twins older. I've drawn the daughter older. I thought a lot about it just because that's me. And it may have happened last year that I was thinking about this too, so it's been a long time. But the twins, they kind of follow, one follows after the mom, one follows after the dad kind of thing. But neither one takes over Hanazuka. But I'd like to think that the quieter twin, kind of like he's more calm, Katsuro, he's more like chill, and he kind of like takes over Gravnica, and he's more level-headed, and he's like more of that leadership role. And then Akio is definitely more of like, I'm gonna go and punch things like mom did, and like go and be like, you know, help out people and be like a knight. I'm sure he heard stories of the Inquisitors from Carr and like got all fascinated, and now it's more of the Delver's side, so he's probably really fascinated and, you know, probably tries to talk to the Anais Zach kids all the time and like, you know, hounds them. And then their daughter is super headstrong, and she, I think, just kind of takes up whatever mantle she needs to. And John and I have said that the daughter and Kahu's son and Meikai's daughter end up being a thing in the end too, and journey on together, and it kind of fits her personality. Like, he's gonna go off on an adventure on a ship, well, I'm gonna come too, and like pseudo pirates but not pirates in my head. So
Yeah, those actually, because speaking about future worlds and stuff, and I'll hint at some of that later, but at a future world where people get shunted into it, those two were actually the ones when you guys told me that. I was like, that'd be interesting to take those into a future world where they'd be like the tie-ins from Organia and like they go on an adventure. But especially with Kahu and Anir's, well, what about planar travel? What else is out there? And knowing Kahu did that, it's like, well, how can they push that? And then seeing all of a sudden like shunted into maybe the crystalline world. So that was always something I had in mind. But because of you two talking about your people, that's also the thought of the future for the Organia that I always have in mind, that I don't really know where the next 1,000 or 100 years go necessarily, because there's going to be a huge time of peace without corruption. There's obviously going to be other things that happen, but it's going to be more like, it's not corruption based. It'll be more, you know, bad people do bad things and we can take them down sort of thing. Wars might happen, but in my future of Organic, everyone's like, oh, will you ever come back to this? And I think one day I will. But I have a really interest in doing a cyberpunk sci-fi game. And so I've always thought of Hanazuka being that like cyberpunk Japanese like corporation takes over the world hub, and where that like would take it from New Organia to Hanazuka now being like the main corporate side of the Organia world. So yeah, I personally have a cyberpunk future in mind for the Fates, not Fates 2 in my head. If I ever had a Fates 3, I think that's where we'd swing back to, at least in my head. But yeah, so it was actually based on you guys talking about your lineage and the kids that, you know, you guys are playing. So I'd like to eventually hear from Mark and Rachel, maybe where their kids would go on.
Think about all 5.
They'd be all sitting there being like,
we had too many kids. I have to think about all of them.
They'd be
That's why I just kept it to 3.
They'd be the Delvers of Antiquity that would be like off the grid, stopping the cyberpunk world from happening. Like, this is corruption. Like, perfect. Cool. So great question though. I'll think about the kids there. I think we're on Mark, right? You want to ask a question?
Sure, I'll grab the would you be friends with your character in real life question from Tim.
That's a fun one. I like that one. You want to start?
I would say yes. I would be friends with Zach in real life. I feel like him and I could get along in real life. Because I think he's very similar to who I am in real life in a lot of ways too.
In what ways?
Oh, yeah.
In more particular?
I mean, just I think that like very thoughtful, like very introspective thinking through things a lot, and like the loyal stuff and all that. I think those are traits
The bleed
that
through
I have
traits, yeah. Mhm.
somewhat. And
I can see it
for
sure.
I don't know. I think just sitting and talking and theorizing would be a thing they would do a lot.
Fun. I like it. What about the rest of you guys? Would you be friends with your characters?
I think I'd be able to be friends with Kahu. I'd probably have him try to teach me how to forge and stuff, though. That'd be fun.
That'd be really fun.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would.
Sorry.
No, you
Go ahead.
wait. Okay. Yeah, I would with Meikai.
I mean, you guys
I
would be
think she'd be
pregnant
really-
together at the same time, so I mean, I feel like
We
you guys would be
pregnant
butt buddies.
buddies.
We'd be pregnant buddies, and we could complain together and eat cookies together. It'd be amazing. But yeah, no, I think her just being sassy,
Mhm.
just getting stories and then being like, "All right, girl, like, okay, you just keep complaining and like being, sassy." But yeah, I like her attitude a lot.
You join her book club. I see it.
Yeah, I'd be friends with Anais, probably because at being someone who's an extrovert, some of my closest friends are introverts because I enjoy drawing them out. It's like a really fun thing for me to get introverts to open up to me and tell me all about themselves. So I feel like I would have a great time being like, Anais, tell me
Yeah.
everything.
Okay. Hey, Rachel.
And we could plow through the awkwardness until it feels
Okay.
it's great. So yeah, I would have fun with her, I think.
It'd be really fun.
Yeah, the
I think
extrovert rush.
Anais would just like follow you around everywhere. Just like,
Yeah,
Please
I could
protect
talk
me.
for her.
yep,
Yeah,
thank
it'd
you.
be great.
I'll be your
And then if someone
shadow.
ever like tries to mug me or something, like I got a great bodyguard. Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
a good
she'll zap 'em.
combination.
Always
Yep.
the quiet ones you gotta watch out for.
Yep.
I'll ask a question for me because we haven't gotten into too many of those. I could touch on that, but what is one moment the players completely surprised you that you were not prepared for or expecting? Tim, that's an easy question for my man. I had a fun necromantic undead fight for Travar to reveal himself, and like basically the Chosen's having to protect Carr when he's at a -4 after being resurrected, and he was all gonna have this like his whole family, Carr's undead family, rise up, and this whole thematic thing, and they had to fight him, but he was like a necromancer who wasn't that powerful, and Mark was like, "Got a spell," and I was like, "Well, they're already there." He's like, "Nope, it's a spell." And I was like, "Well, I mean, there's a legit DM moment of like, well, you're not ruining my fight. It's a magic item." He's like, "I can counterspell those." I'm like, "God, didn't know that." It's just one of those moments where I'm like, I should have just had the spirits there and not really had him have a moment where he did that. But it was also one of my favorite moments of just the players being so prepared, and I think just it was one of my favorite fights where I got to see them just completely shut down a character and NPC that I wanted to be like a tease in the beginning and then like be more intense later on. Because he was basically gonna just walk through the portal and leave them to be with the spirits. Like he was not going to fight. And so to have them be like, "Nope, it's just you and you can't do anything," and then Kahu like shut them down with like some wind of wall and grappling him, and it was just one of those DM moments where we're like, I just gotta pull him out of this because I don't know what to do yet. Because I probably should just let him die at the moment. Really, realistically, I should just rewarded the players for doing that, or let them save him, or something more along those lines. But I was so thrown off, and just it was amazing. So that was one of the biggest moments that I was absolutely thrown off in the game, and I was just like, well, y'all just turned in a boss fight into like just you guys having fun and doing stuff, which is most of the battles in the game anyway. I learned a lot about combat balancing over time. But
We're too powerful.
yeah, were there any like moments that you felt? What were the most surprising moments for you guys then? I think like for you guys as players, just unexpected moments in the game. Any that stick out?
When Zach wished Bardicdice's body just
Yeah.
in front of us. I loved that.
That threw me off too. Where
Oh,
did?
fine, Rach.
Well,
Sorry.
she just got summoned.
My bad.
Bardicdice is like, now you're back with me, child. Yeah, that one was one where I was like, well, dang, I gotta redo my entire map and battle map at this one because I had everything done and ready.
Yeah.
And you guys are like, well, what if it comes to me? I'm like, I just finished that map. The map looks so cool. And you guys never went there. Like, it was one of my favorite, not one of my favorite maps, but it was up there as one of my favorites. I was just like, well, okay. Like, that was a whole fight where it's like, you guys were gonna shadow walk and have to be in 2 different realms. It was similar to Mark's where, like, Brandon had to go into the other realm and do things, and it just didn't happen. So,
Yes.
it just broke the ritual. I was like, all right.
That was
Awesome.
great. She was so mad too. I think that's why I liked it so much. She was just so mad.
I feel like Zach and Mark were the center of most of these moments. But
I'm sorry.
no, you're not. No, but I think
I'm a little sorry.
I think they made some of the best
I was-
moments though.
Was really surprised by how many stupid sharks there were in that Kraken fight. I got surrounded by 8 sharks. I was very surprised. There was more. That's what was going through my head the entire time. I'm like, oh my gosh. That's a really dumb thing to be surprised about, but like...
I had like so little hit points. I just weren't expecting them to last that long. And so I just had a lot of them. Yeah, that was definitely one of those. You guys, if you've been watching since the beginning, my fight balance was so poor until I say the last fourth of the game. That was one of those where it's like you make the mistake of trying to throw just more enemies, trying to balance things. Because our chosen's way more powerful than they should have been. But B, they're just such great builds and stuff. That they're very powerful. So yeah, that was probably my biggest struggle. I think is battle combat and balancing. But it was fun. I thought that was a really fun fight in my opinion.
I remember it was a fun fight, but I remember the frustration with the shark in that fight in particular was it showed just how critical mobility can be in a fight.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it was not only were we being swarmed by things that can move far more than we ever could. And so it made it very challenging for us to actually like follow up on things or to like get into a different position.
I think that was
kind of just
I still enjoyed that though because I felt like I gave you guys an extra challenge on top of normal fight and not just let's swarm things and kill it, to the end of it. So I wish I'd done it maybe better, but I do like giving you guys outward challenges that aren't normal in a fight. Or at least that's what I like to see in a fight too. But
I still like that fight for sure.
I was gonna say around those fights, like in that area, the other like clutch moment that happened that I really liked was when that Kraken or whatever it was swallowed Anais and she was definitely dead. Like she was 100% dead. And then Kahu used that reaction thing that made it so that he like spat her out or something. And I was like, that was really good. Like it could have gotten very bad for a second.
Yeah, I think that was one of 2 times the entire campaign that ability actually worked.
Yeah, it was really good.
Poor Kahu.
And my save was actually a hard save too, but
It
man,
really
Michael
was,
saved me every time. Every time he saved against it.
I will have to say those are one of the small rules that I gave myself early on because I think one of my bad habits prior to this game, and even early on, there's a few times that I did this where I'd either have scaling DCs based on situations or I'd fudge rolls based on narrative things as a DM. And I learned like out of Joy and Beacons of like, let's just let the dice actually tell the story and just legit stay with it. And yeah, those are one of those rules in this one. I was like, when the dice roll something, I stick to it. So yeah, I think there's a few times where I was like, I just want to give it to them, but like, Sorry. Yes, I did feel bad. I did feel bad on that one a few times. Let's just bane my guy, all right? Make them. Make them
I also
save us.
really,
Slippery barbs.
I also really enjoyed that for some reason it turned into for Meikai, she would always finish people off with backhands. It just like became a thing. I always thought that was funny.
I think we had a lot of
Famous for backhands.
unexpected things that happened, for sure.
All the wish spells, I'd say, save Anias's because only because yours was a post thing. So
It was
I knew
still
that you were going to use it
unexpected,
in a...
though, but it was nice.
It did. I thought you were
Yeah.
going to go the I'm going to wish for a bunch of diamonds. Because we
I
talked
was
about
thinking
that.
it. I was thinking about going
Um,
Resurrection Tour, but I decided against it.
Yeah, because I remember talking about that. So like that, it did kind of end up being like, oh, hey, I like that, how that wish. But Kahu's wish, Meikai got 2.
I just wish
First-
changed the game. Yeah.
Both of those. And then, yeah, Zach's wish, like, it all, that was all.
I do not regret that one.
Surprising.
I know it was weird and very overpowering, but it was one of those weird narrative choices that I did as a DM. Like I saw on TikTok, and I'm like, I'm so glad I did it.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I think it worked out
Mhm.
really in a fun way.
The shockwave
Yeah.
was nice in a different way. I wish I had executed better, but it was a nice theatrical moment. I just wish I had executed it better. So those are the two things I actually got from TikTok. But there's actually a really interesting question was Sundavir. Sundavir originally was... So Sundavir and actually Alana in the beginning of my game were supposed to be my first half big bads. But my idea was that you guys had big bads who were like fooled by corruption. And so Alana, with her father being a false chosen, she had an amulet, and this actually played beautifully in Nakahu's epilogue, but she had an amulet that I actually teased in the beginning that actually had just an echo of the corruption that in my mind that had like fooled her father. And so that it was something that she already had a prejudgment against the Chosens. And it was going to be something, it was actually something I saw in Prince of, what was it? The dragon one. The one that I actually like, Organia is actually kind of based on the show.
Dragon Prince.
Dragon Prince. Alana's was based on the character kind of that, I don't know, some evil guy that like whispered into the bad guy's ear a lot. And so that was going to be my thing, was that corruption was kind of whispering into her and telling her lies about the Chosen. So she was going to actually be in the first half, be the big bad that basically turned everyone against you and made the Inquisitors hunt you. And Varys kind of like helped poking that fire, with Sundavir as well, being this like former Chosen that, you know, was kind of like corrupted and controlled by that. But that was when we decided like it was too oppressive with the storm. You guys weren't coming together as a group too well, and I was like, I didn't want to add on. Like, you guys kind of agreed because I kind of told you guys what it was, and you guys were like, yeah, maybe this is not the best idea. So that was actually kind of interesting how the big bads actually changed in the game. I feel like those were way different than when we originally were supposed to have them. So actually, Alana was, from the beginning, I always thought she'd be the light chosen. It was redemption for like her father and what she did, and it was fun to see her not even be chosen as a chosen, and just kind of have like a narrative backstory that, because you guys just never really interacted much with her, at least once you left the Centaurium. So it was kind of interesting. I thought she'd be a more key NPC that didn't end up being one.
I was planning on making her a chosen, but then the unexpected event happened between Kahu and his brother, and I just felt like story's calling me this direction.
So if it wasn't for Kamal ID, you would have chosen Alana instead?
If it wasn't for that story beat that happened,
Yeah.
Alana was likely to be my selection.
Interesting. That's fun. Yeah, because Alana was based on the Fire Emblem character, the girl with the gray hair, from that one, because I crushed on her after I played Fire Emblem Three Houses. I was like, well, I'm bringing her into the game, turning her into Alana. So, fun. Dee, do you want to ask a question?
I do. This kind of goes along with the backstory thing, because Amara was kind of asking that too. But it's, how did you choose names? And this is kind of pointed at, all your A names and the V names and... Oh, bye, Jen. But how did you guys choose names for your characters, so for all of us, and then was there anything you were trying to go for with like tropes? Because I know sometimes I'll like find like a little trope, like the enemies to lovers thing, you know, and like kind of like play around with that a little bit. But yeah, was there anything NPC, PC wise? I know for me it's the enemies to lovers, it's the redemption comeback thing for Meikai. So kind of, and then just Japanese themed names. You know, there's a lot, so.
Well, Anais was originally, this was like my second version of her. She was supposed to be in like a written narrative campaign originally that was like kind of post-apocalyptic a little bit. So then I sort of like rewrote a bunch of stuff about her to like fit into Fates. So Anais was the original name I'd given her, and I liked it. And it doesn't even mean anything. The only reason why was I think there's like some character in the Bible in like Acts whose name is Ananias, and I was like, that's an awesome name. I want to do something. So then I just chopped off the Anna part, just did Ananias or whatever, and I thought that was why I did that. And yeah, the only like theme I was going into it was just, what would make someone take a vow of silence? It would have to be something really bad to, or something you felt very strongly about at least, to do that. So my character or my thoughts for her all revolved around the vow of silence. So
nice. Fun.
Yeah, for Kahu's name, when I built kind of his area, I was trying to do like a Viking and Islander, like mishmash theming going on. And I went with Kahurangi because I decided on the green eyes situation. And Kahurangi is a stone that is the Kahurangi stone in I think it's the Hawaiian Islands and some other places over there. And so I named Kahu after that specifically because his eye color that I had done, that was different from anybody else in the village. So it was just kind of like an homage, or like it was basically kind of like how, parents might name a kid Ferguson because he's got red hair or something like that. It was one of those moments as he was born, his parents were like, with the green eyes, he's going to be this.
That was a fun thing to, like, you gave me the green. I was like, corruption's going to be green. It's going to be fun. And then time, you're like, well, it has to be someone bad. And then getting Beardus and just holding on to that for so long. But having you have a reason for it to be green and have it, it's a Kahurangi stone. It's like, why would anyone think otherwise for so long? It was just really fun to hide that behind that for so long. And then actually turn it into a nice narrative beat later on. So cool. What about Mark? What about Zach?
I was just going for kind of fancy sounding names, so Zachary is what I picked, and that's what I did for a lot of his family too. And I made up the last name.
Yeah,
that's just, there's no meaning that I really picked out for. Just needed a name.
I just laughed a lot because I was like, I feel like it's so like American sounding, like these like American
I definitely was thinking for like rich, fancy, preppy neighborhood America when I was thinking of like where his family is. So that's basically
I think that played out really well. Yeah, for sure. I know for the joke throughout this was that there's a lot of some V names because I just like the V sound when it comes to things like Veery, Varys. I know that like a lot of that happened. I think I had to put my own Varys character, Varro or something like that. So that just happened a lot. And then Amaria happened because early on I was naming a lot of characters kind of based on just people in the chat. Like I think we had like a bartender that was named after Brahm, and so like Amara came in. I was like, I'm gonna name a Inquisitor after Amaria instead of Amara, because she was all like, I want someone named after me. I'm like, okay. Like Nelson had someone. So then I didn't realize that Kahu had already made Amaya. And I was like, oh yeah, I'd already made Alana. So it was just like a lot of A's that happened. It just was not intentional, but it's just literally now as a DM, I'm like, well, can't have an A name, can't have a V name, and I just try and stick away
Don't
from
forget
that.
the Carius.
You didn't just
Carius.
start at
Yep.
the top and the bottom of the baby book and just, all right, I got my list.
I should have. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then right. Well, and that was
Bricarius and Bricarius.
I think I had already named Bricarius, and I forget where his like that had a meaning to it. But then I decided we had an old narrative campaign where we all played dragons, who would play these like just normal town NPCs that were like in a dragon world. And so I just came back and used all of those names, and Bardicdice was one of them, and then it just tied into Bricarius, and it's just all unintentional for sure. And then you have those in your mind, so then when you go like and do a name real quick, it's usually kind of just rhymes with it. So yeah, I'm really bad for that, for sure. So yeah, oops. I think D you asked that one, right? So Rachie,
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I'm prepared this time. So I said it 2 players, but I feel like you should answer too, Mike, because like you played them. But so for each person, who was your favorite NPC and why were they your favorite?
Actually, I had an answer for this, so
No.
I'll go first if you want. Because there's a lot of them. A lot of them are really fun to play, and a lot of them, I think Alana was the one that I think was my favorite to create and just never had a chance to flush out. Or I thought would be a bigger player in the game that wasn't. But Amaya, I think actually ended up being one of my favorite NPCs to play. I think that was one that was unexpected and had some of the more beautiful moments in the game narratively. And then Cinevere, I think, at the end of the day, just that was the closest thing to a self-insert of different characters that I like to play, just kind of put into the game as like a NPC slash, PC. Because I don't like DMPCs, but that was kind of the closest. So when you befriended him, that was just kind of fun. And then of course Carlos is fun, but he's supposed to be the comedic relief throughout it all. So yeah, I think Amaya, surprisingly, was the one that actually was one of my favorite to play.
Yeah, I don't think I would have expected that actually. So that's really interesting.
I was thought about that on the way to work today.
Are you gonna answer, Rachie? Or are you waiting?
I don't know. I saw other people were unmuting, so I was waiting.
You can go, John, or Rage.
I mean, I'm partial to the NPCs. Obviously, I interact with the most. I think there's two that I really like, but if I had to choose one or the other, I think Amaya was probably mine as well. I felt like when I had chances to have story beats with her, I felt like they were all very, for me at least, I felt they drove a strong narrative in all the story beats I had in scenes with her. And I really appreciated having the ability to have those moments, and so I would probably say Maya was my top pick.
Those came out of just like improv too, and just like narrative. So I think those are some of my favorite moments that happen organically that are not scripted, and so I think that's why they favorite one.
Okay. It's like I'm Rachie to answer. Obviously Car. But I think besides that very obvious one, I really loved Carlos. I loved Meikai's mom. And I really liked Bri a lot. So those are like my top ones. I thought they were really fun. And all the jokes with the bacon wizard in the beginning.
So all the comic relief
really funny.
NPCs. Okay, good to know your type. Good.
Well, yeah, because like all the serious ones Meikai never talked to anyways. Yeah. And so I didn't have a connection with any of the Inquisitors, with any of like even the Genasi, like
yeah.
She didn't like Iscarius from the beginning.
My poor Genasi have tried to make it into a game like for 3 times now, and they're just all no one cares about them. No player in 3 or 4 campaigns now have ever cared about my Genasi players. I'm like, okay, well they're retired now. They're watchers of Organia. No, they've played their parts here. I was expecting them to play bigger parts, but again, Alana and the Genasi, they didn't have to. You guys chose other NPCs you latched onto. So.
Yeah, I really liked Nier too. So that's my answer.
My favorite part of games is watching you guys latch onto NPCs that I didn't expect. My favorite thing. AG?
Okay, Mark.
Oh, Mark?
No, it's Mark now because you
Oh.
won't unmute unless prompted to.
There you go. Well, Mark.
Stop
Okay.
prompting him.
Sure, Rach. Thank you. I would probably say my favorite NPC would be Layetta, just because I think she was one of those characters that persevered through a lot and like always stayed determined and kept going. So that's one that I would have loved to have more interactions with, but she would be my favorite.
Yeah, I was expecting you guys to reach out to her a little bit more for information. That just never happened. But I also understand, because I think you guys didn't know who to trust for so long, and if Varys would kind of recontrol someone. So yeah, that was also it. You guys were just on the other side of the world for so long, I think, from some of those characters. But yeah, nice, Rachie.
Yeah. So I can never pick one. So I think I would have top 3. Bry, obviously, just because he had a connection to Anais. He was the one that found her. He was the one that kind of got her back on her feet. They kind of had a relationship where like sometimes he'd take care of her and sometimes she would take care of him. And that was always interesting. I was happy with his growth too. It felt like he grew a lot throughout the campaign, and he didn't stay depending on someone much younger than her. It was more a lapse, which I appreciated, because she needed a father figure. She didn't need another person to take care of. So I think when she dumped out his alcohol, that was probably the turning point.
That man almost banished you out of this world so quick. It was like,
it was so fun.
That was not Callum's daughter. I would have gone straight to corruption.
I enjoyed Connor a lot too. Just because their story went hand in hand.
It was a fun story.
And it was nice for Anais, who had very little to like live for, if that makes sense. To focus on like uniting them. Like she was very zoned in on that. So I liked that whole dynamic.
And then it just killed him in a shockwave. And
Connor.
Of course, he has to bring him back.
That's okay. He's back now. And I actually did enjoy Sundavir. Even though him and Anais were never like tight, I kind of liked that he was kind of instrumental in like what happened with her family, and then her kind of getting that out of him, and then having to work together was fun. I liked that.
That was an unintentional part of their story that I was like, I realized after, when you guys cleared Jorno from the shadow, that I was like, oh, that was such an unintended, like, forgotten part of your backstory that like still had ties. I was like, the corruption in Sundavir still kind of related to your story, because that corruption is what led him to create the ritual that then Virtus took over.
Yeah.
And had, so much time to even corrupt that much more. So, or perverse that much more. So yeah, that was a very unintentional story beat that I was looking back. I was like, oh, that was really...
Yeah, I enjoyed those interactions. I thought they were fun.
I think everyone answered, right? Yeah. John, I want to ask a question.
Yes, this is from Amara. I think I might need to readjust the question a little bit, but I'll read word for word what she said, and then my readjustment.
Sure.
It says, if you were to reflavor your chosen, what affinity would you pick for your character instead? I guess that question makes sense. I had a couple of affinities in mind, though, right? Because at the end of the day, Mike ended up being the one who chose our affinities, and...
Well, I'll make this a two-parter. So one, reflavor of the existing affinities. The second part would be, if you ever wanted an affinity that wasn't already an existing one, would you have ever created one that hadn't existed already? Like Galaxy. I don't know. Something that wasn't part of the ones that were already there. You know what I mean? So that's just the second part, if anyone has an idea that... Hold that up.
Okay. I think in terms of affinities that I could have seen Kahu being otherwise was, I think, stars or earth.
Okay.
I could also see him potentially in darkness. I mean, as we saw in the story, he was pushing a lot towards that the whole time. My kind of thought or my connection with that a lot, though, had to do with being the ocean chosen and the fact that, like, the deeper you go into the ocean, the more that nothing except darkness exists down there. But I think that's where I'm at in terms of if Kahu had been reflavored. Between those, I kind of almost feel like I would have gone stars.
Hmm.
And the reason why is that I would have tied in his desire to sail a little bit more, because that was another story beat I had potentially in the game, was him having this like desire to be more of a sailor, which I know I could have done with the ocean, but I kind of ended up taking more of the beats towards the crafting and the creating.
Cool.
So I could have seen stars though, and then I probably would have pushed more of the sailing, because then it would have been like, the North Stars being used as a guiding post and things like that. In terms of a new affinity that would potentially be, I don't know if Kahu would be this one, but I think it'd be an awesome affinity to be connected to. It's like an infinity of time.
Ooh, yeah. I like that one a lot, especially because I think these are all like natural based ones. So to think of something that's like more constructed would be kind of an interesting dichotomy with that idea too.
Yeah. And one other one I just thought of as well, which is partially connected to the character design I've thought of, is an infinity of division. And what I mean by that is an infinity who's all about dividing space.
Interesting. I like that. That's kind of cool. Be curious how we could develop that. But yeah, that's an interesting take on it. Nice. Anyone else? Any other reflavors?
Dang, keep doing that.
I'm like, okay, nobody said anything.
I
but
know.
go.
That's why I'm like waiting for a second.
One,
You know, we should
two,
do
ready,
that
go.
though, because Mark won't unmute unless he's prompted.
Mark,
So
go
it's
ahead.
gonna be you and me every time. Yeah, Mark, go.
Mark goes next.
All right. So, I mean, he was the sun, and then when light got freed, I felt like that was more fitting because, I think Zach has always been more about like trying to bring light and hope to people, and like that's the side of the sun thing that he was really attached to. It wasn't so much like the fury and the
Fire.
heat of the sun and all that. So he left that to get the light instead, because he felt like that was more focused on what his intention was behind what he was doing, and then Leia seemed to fit pretty well with both the light and the fury side of it too. So that's why he gave that to her. I don't think there was any other affinity that really would have been super close to his that I could think of. I mean, I don't know. Like it's hard to think because like there's not like a real tie to any like certain virtue or something for a lot of them. It's just kind of like whatever you feel like you're connected to. But
what a mishaps affinity.
That would probably not be good for
A
Zach.
chaos affinity. Ooh. Fun. I like that. No, actually, that was something I thought about early on. Was I almost changed my lore to switch Solus and Astalri because I thought it did fit better. But then we talked about the anger side, and I was like, actually, maybe I'll let that fire and intensity stay with him and just see where it goes in the story. So actually, you ending up with light, I do like that. I think it kind of matches Zachary's a lot. So, and then giving Leia the fire that she needed to purify corruption with, I thought was really, really cool. Rachel,
It was cool flavoring into her attacks too. Yeah, so
I'll prompt you guys.
Yeah, me and Dee messaged each other. We're like, "You go first."
Oh, that's funny.
So we had it figured out. But thank you. So I feel like Anais' whole thing was the storm. Like that was a big part of her character. So that's a hard question for me to answer because like
So tied in.
it's tied into her personality. Like So I don't think anything else would have fit her very well, especially with how like her personality was even tied into how the weather can be. Like 1 second it can be really nice, and the next second it's terrifying. So
How'd you like
I
having a
don't think.
chosen that didn't speak much either?
Oh, I know, and they're like twins
Mhm.
basically. So yeah, I don't think she would go with anything else, especially like with the loyalty there. If I had to have switched to something else, I think you and I were talking, and it was like because for a while we hadn't decided,
Mm.
and I know like water was another one that was like it could have been a storm as
Yep.
well, because it has to do with so much of it. So that was a thought. Funny enough, in her original game, it was the whole world was a drought, so she was a storm, but it was no water, it was dust storms. So
Mm.
she was like a dust cleric
Hence
essentially is
why the
what the
desert
class
was in
was.
the plane of the elves.
Yeah, that's why I like threw that in there because
Mm.
but yeah, dust clerics, that's fun. For affinities, like one that wasn't around, I don't know, I feel like gravity would be fun.
I was just thinking about that.
Like,
Yeah.
reverse gravity on people and
Yep.
stuff. But yeah.
I think we're getting into like so this is Avatar powers. Now we're getting a Legend of Korra powers, where it's like the blood is
Yeah,
metal
exactly.
bending. Yeah.
The upgraded.
Okay.
Upgraded
All right. Cyberpunk world gonna be with affinities and the Soul Forge are giving them. Yeah, no, because at one point instead of Virdis, I was gonna have much more. It was funny that we kind of fought a sand monster in Amity, because that was something I was, instead of having a beholder, it was gonna be more of a sand monster as a callback to Anais' original storyline, and then the beholder thing kind of just started making sense of like this chaotic, crazy girl, and what, like, that's actually a hint into my next campaign too, is the crystals that you can look into and you can pull and manifest something out of. I was like, well, if you see a beholder from the Forgotten Realms, but you're kind of psychotic and crazy, and what can you manifest? So she basically turned those elves into her version of a beholder that she saw through the Forgotten Realms crystals. So that was kind of a little tease into what my Fates 2 kind of bore, because that was the time I was starting to build that. So yeah, it's kind of fun to see all that stuff happen. Lee.
I always low-key wanted the moon because Meikai's eyes, with the tieflings have, and I took it from Final Fantasy XIV from one of the character designs, one of the races, but she has in like little crescent shapes under her pupils. So I always hope for that, or stars, but
Yeah.
I think the stars theme was kind of a lesser light angle. So instead of being the moon, where like, and this was coming from her backstory too, June being the moon, the center, and then her being the stars and the lesser light, and just kind of like being in the background, right? Like, yeah, there's a lot of stars, but nobody really talks about the stars. They talk about the moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, yeah, I just really wanted the moon. I didn't have a desire for like just how I thought about Meikai. It like the, you know, I kind of played ideas with like the sun as well, but I was like, that doesn't really suit her. You know, like the ocean doesn't. You know, Hanazuka's not a really a water country. You know, storm does not make sense in any form. Like, so it was always kind of the moon. But I think an affinity that would be kind of cool going along with the Kalashtar would be Dream. And having a Dream affinity would be kind of cool.
That's
and so
cool.
you have a duality of dreams versus the nightmares.
Yeah.
So
that's fun.
It'd be kind of, yeah.
You guys have, I love all your answers on these like what if affinities. Neat. Which I think will be like the lesser deities in this world. So if those act as like, and they're not really deities, but they act like the main deities, like these could be like the lesser patrons and deities of the world would develop from that.
Yeah, and Kahu's ending kind of like gave me that idea.
Door to that, yeah. Sweet. Mark, do you have a question you want to ask?
I'll ask you a question, Mike.
Me? Wow.
Yep. What is the most valuable thing you learned while running this game? That's from Rachel.
Oh, I mean, I kind of touched on a little bit from the world building technical side. Yeah, just not trying to start over from scratch, using materials when I can. I kind of, and this is actually, I'll tie this into Tim's question, or it was Amara's maybe. Like, would you do homebrew again, or stick to modules from now on? I prefer modules as a stream DM. It's just so much easier to cut out that prep work and run it, and my skills are more improv and character-based storytelling. But I've learned, I think, in this game, a consistency and just kind of like keeping with it and not like starting and stopping or kind of going with that. Because I think there's a lot of anxiety in my life outside of the game and in the game kind of added to that just with everything going on. But learning how to communicate with each player what they want in the game and how to provide it in a way that's satisfying, can still function in a surprising way, but not take player agency either. Because that's something where I don't think I'm the worst at, but there's times where I'm more theatrical too. And I think sometimes I can have a event kind of be waiting where some people can feel like they didn't get a chance to interact with it. So that's something I'm still learning. And I think I learned a lot of in the game. And I think there was a few times at the end of the game, I had to get us to the end of the game. So I kind of reverted to some of those moments because I had to. But that's some of my biggest things, I think, is getting a chance to really let people open up about what they expect from their character and what they expect from the game. So yeah, I think that's something going forward. The session 0 will be a lot more intense in a game like this. I just think it was, yeah, I don't know. I think we all had different expectations going into this game. And it just turned into something way more beautiful and different, but it just was different from what was expected in a lot of ways. So yeah, I guess that's some of the big stuff. I don't know if I'd stream a homebrew game again, because there's another question about like what's going in the future, and I'll discuss more like my lore plans, but I'm so split on this. I think this will have to be one of those I have to process after the game. Like, I love streaming DM a game and running D&D on stream, but a homebrew world is so much more anxiety and imposter syndrome and, you know, all that kind of stuff built into it that I don't know if I'd necessarily stream another one. But at the same time, the other half is love sharing the story with people and having the chat react and seeing all the love for the characters and the story we present. So it's tough because like part of me is like already ready to be like, nah, I want to bring Fates 2 on. I don't know, you know what I mean? So, yeah. Anything you guys want to add to that before I say my question? Because it kind of bounces off that anyway.
Just great answer.
Okay. Well, I think it was Tim that asked this one because I like to just ask you guys this as a little egotistical. But it kind of plays into things that maybe I've learned or done. But what is one thing Mike did really well in his campaign? So I get to ask you, all of you guys, what's something that you guys liked that I did in this campaign that I did well, or about just I can hear all the good compliments.
I liked your NPCs and all their voices a lot, and getting to learn like backstory stuff, particularly Carlos, honestly.
All right,
but like,
all right, thank you.
I felt so bad for him the entire time, but like you gave like a good variety. Even if there was a million A and B names, I felt like they all kind of felt like pretty distinct. It wasn't like I could differentiate them pretty well, you know, just with their like how you did either the accent or even without the accents. I think just the mannerisms and like how they like approached us as like PCs, I think it was really nice. So And I really love your map. And I used that as my background for a long time.
Thanks. I do want to get it printed
Yeah.
out for my wall at some point. It'd be really fun to add to it and kind of complete it. But hey, Rachie.
So a couple things that stood out. One is you're really good at describing like scenes and emotions and different things like that. So like I know you're saying like sometimes theatrical moments you can get too carried away, but you know, I think the balance there is like they are good, like they're nice to listen to and they always set the scene really well. So I always enjoy listening to those. And I also had fun just with how customizable the chosen stuff felt within the game. Both you just giving us stuff that fit well, but also like you coming up with things, but also like at points opening it up for like and like collabing a little bit. So like especially with like Tempest Cleric, I feel like especially the higher levels you get, they have some weird spells and stuff I don't feel like fit, and it didn't feel like it fit Anais. And it was really great to be able to for me to be like, hey, can I have Thunderstep, because I feel like that would work. And you're like, yeah, go for it.
Makes
And
sense.
you know, it's just yeah, and like it wasn't, you weren't too worried about, you know,
Changing up the game.
about it sticking with a particular class. Like it just was more like this, if this is them, this is what it is. So I had a lot of fun with that, and I enjoyed the customization aspect. So, and it never felt too OP'd either. Like when we
I was just about to ask, do you guys ever felt like, I do feel like sometimes the dice damage might have been just because it just made me add, like I just basically turned a lot of the bosses into like tank, you know, hit point tanks. But do you guys ever feel like the stuff I gave you and the chosen stuff was too OP at any times, that was like, this is breaking the game a little bit, especially combat wise?
I think maybe mid game it felt like, early game or mid game it felt like a lot. But I think, and at that point we'd gotten a bunch of magic items too.
Yeah.
But I think afterwards you could, like everything kind of scaled
Readjusted
back and
a
it felt
bit.
more. Yeah, so I think there was portions of it where it felt a little OP, but I don't feel like it was like that for the majority of the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I know sometimes, you know, we've all played in games where it's like, if there's
It's too
absolutely no
OP.
threat, and you're just
Yeah.
like, I can't even get hit or anything, then it's just not fun.
We definitely were OP in the game, but it felt more like a fun OP. Like there's like a range of like, some games are too OP where it's not even fun anymore because you have somewhat like all the enemies dying before you even get to the end of the turn order. And you know, so like some people didn't even get to participate before because the OP is too strong, but it didn't feel like that, you know.
Nice. Jun? You have nothing nice to say. You don't have to say anything at all. It's okay. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding.
And Mark.
No, I really enjoyed the NPC conversations I was able to have throughout the game. I felt that I felt like the characters that you had worked on with us, when we had our moments with the characters we had worked on with you, it felt personal in the 1v1s with each person. And I really liked the spirit walking thing. I think that wasn't something we were expecting to have happen initially.
Yeah.
And I feel like that turned into a very strong story beat and really kind of ended up being a part of my wrap up of my character at the end too. So that was kind of a cool, unique thing. I was not expecting to have happen, but I think inspired me or like gave me ideas of where to take my character in the future. And I was grateful for you being willing to like collaborate and work on like, how would this work? What kind of things could we do? How could we stretch this further? Because I think it like happened, and then like I started messaging you later, like, "Hey, I have all these thoughts about this," and then it like turned into something I think was supposed to be a momentary beat. It turned into something that changed the course of how Kahu dealt with things in the future.
Well, it's funny too because you're like, I'm gonna play Kalistar, and I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I don't know much about them, but sure. Like they're basically like elves. And then like you started bringing out like I can do this and I can do this. I'm like, I need to read Trace a little bit more because I just wasn't as like I knew of them, but I wasn't familiar with like their lore. I started reading through, and I'm like, golly, this is a strong class because I'm playing a Kalistar now. But like reading through how strong they were, but then that dream stuff, and that actually inspired a lot of the early Soondavir things that were happening, just because of his close connections to like that area of the world. So yeah, it was really fun to see that develop and not be something planned. So I absolutely adored watching that become such a theme throughout the game of dreams and spirit walking and the souls and all that. So that was fun. That was cool. Mark.
I would say, I mean, like the maps and the visuals and the overlay stuff that you put together, there was a lot of time that you could tell was put into them and trying to make them look cool. So definitely enjoyed that aspect of everything.
Oh, just wait. I finally found the map makers. This is a little plug too. Dealey, you know what I'm talking about. Was it, how do you say, Che and Peck or something? CZE and PEK, I think. So if you look them up on Twitter, they come out with like these absolutely amazing. Actually, I'm on their Discord. I want to shout them out now because if I do another stream or I do an offline game, this is what I'll be using because they are exactly what I CZE PEKU. I think it's a couple, or I don't even know. They just make these absolutely gorgeous maps. And they share a lot of them on Twitter for free, but they also do like, and if any of you guys know Alchemy RPG, that's the one that I use for my offline game for Aethervale. And it's this website that has like, you basically do a moving video as the main screen in the like Roll20. And so I'm actually in the future, if I ever do another stream, that I'll use that as more my background and stuff, like a small little like theme. And yeah, I'm super excited because everything they post in like their like environment, I'm like, that's Fates 2. That's what I want to do. And then I follow their Patreon and they're like, you guys can use this for your streams and publications. I'm like, I'm so excited. Like, why did I have this earlier? So yeah, thank you. It's really nice. Which I actually will answer now really quick. Just kind of, again, I can't guarantee Fates 2 will be something that's online. I would love to maybe potentially even bring it as a podcast or YouTube format. I don't know. So I really don't know if that's something that I'll stream online or if it'll be an offline game for friends. Because I think everyone at this table definitely has their first invite to continue on. Of course, I love everyone. But Fates 2, I have an idea. It's called Fates Apart. That basically kind of going on with the multiverse idea before. And that's kind of at the end of the game, I kind of teased it. That was actually a scene in that world. So when Radiant Citadel came out, they have this picture of this crystalline world where basically all these people live that kind of got thrown up there. And so my lore is that different magical, and it's funny that mishaps came out, but different magical accidents that happened, people get shunted because that's what happened to the Ancient One and Varys. Varys was a paladin trying to stop the Ancient One, and I actually lost his name in my notes because I ran a one-shot for this, where he was a guy, and it's actually, again, based on Arcane. Is that right? The League of Legends show that came out. Remember when they like cracked the crystal and it blew up in that show? That's the moment I had this idea. I was like, oh, well, what if in that moment, instead of like dying, you get shunted to a new world? And so this idea that the magic is so powerful that it teleports you and your soul gets stuck in this crystalline world where you can't leave. And so the only thing that connects you home are these pure crystals in my world that are like pure magic and pure creation, where it's all the affinities that we've seen together, like all that magic together, and you can look into it and see any world. So any multiverse, any modern world. So like one of my ideas is that what if you had this crystal and looked into our modern day Earth and saw ancient Egypt? And then the magic that gets imbued in you in your imagination is like, what if that was real and I now had Egyptian magic? So like I have this world at Egypt. There's a like a Philippines mythology area. There's like a arcane style area, and then like the seas between them and pirates. So there's like a crystalline world where everyone's stuck there, and they're from all these different worlds and different locations. And the affinities that are now in this world today, like Adurna Lotha, those are different crystal rocks that surround this, and those will be the new days of the week. So those are the magics that are still existing in that world. So that's going to be a world that I'm planning in my new world in mind that will now be able to attach to anybody's game, or any of my future games will all kind of have a place to go, where once they decide how to break out of this world, that's how they can plane or travel to any of my games. So Organia, Fates United could be associated to any game that I make in the future through this world, this kind of portal in a way. So yeah, it's based on Final Fantasy lore. It's based on Arcane. It's based on just a really freaking cool Kickstarter called Timiri. That was an Egyptian one. And so like kind of that kind of stuff. I wanted to grab a whole lot of campaigns that I thought were really, really cool and build them into a world. So Radiant Citadel was kind of the cornerstone of that. So yes, that is the future of the lore here. And that's kind of the idea that like I had an idea for Fates that turned into this. That's my idea for Fates too, is Fates Apart. This is a story of bringing redemption and Chosens together. They had to unite. What if you rip people apart and see what kind of fates happen and align to you reunite those communities back to their original worlds? And then the idea that melds out of that is, okay, well, what if you get ancient Egypt magic, right? And this is actually like, I know we've been talking different inspiration for our characters, but like, let's say you just have, I don't know, an Eric Crokerin who's a pharaoh now that has magic and is a paladin. But you somehow get back to connect to modern world Earth. What happens when he introduces that magic into our world? Does it break world? Does it create a zombie apocalypse? Like, what does that mean for a modern day campaign setting? So that's kind of been the questions I'm asking. And potentially, if we continue on with streaming, I think we'll open that up to chat and have you guys help me create these ideas and have these discussions of like doing Bardic Brew sessions. Because like I said, I don't know if this is a stream. I don't know if it's offline, but creating this world with a lot more time and effort and organization than I did with Fates United, I think Fates Apart could be a really fun collaborative story. So thank you guys. Yeah, thank you guys so much. And keep nagging me on that. And I'm sure eventually I'll give in and come back and do another stream. But for now, we are going to take a break from streaming, let people enjoy their weeks, as we've committed to a lot of games during the week. We have life changes happening and things like that. So we're definitely going to take a break at least through the year, probably halfway through the next year as well. And we'll kind of see what happens with that. But yeah, so I wanted to answer that one. What was kind of next? I think Tim asked that and things like that. So yeah, I mean, we can go ahead. I'm going to take another break real quick. I want to grab some water, go to the bathroom again. I don't know what's hitting me tonight, but allow you guys to go to the bathroom, take a quick break, and then we'll speed around any last questions that we have and finish up tonight. What do you guys think? For everyone? So if anyone in chat wants to ask any questions, I'll go ahead and drop them now. I know it's getting a little late. We'll probably only go for about 30 more minutes or so, but we'll be back to finish out tonight. All right, thank you guys so much for chilling with us for our post-game Q&A. Heading into the last little bit of it, I will go ahead and do a little speed rounds for our final questions that are left, and just kind of, as well, if any of you guys do have actually, we'll start with that. Does anyone have any burning questions for the campaign? You guys know I blab as a DM versus other DMs, so is there any hanging questions story-wise that are in the air? Everyone's pretty good on those, right? Well, or in chat if you guys have any hanging questions there. But let's go through these. Yeah, super quick answer. Dealey said, "What's your favorite magic item or item from the game?" So, Dealey.
I really liked our chosen weapons, and I liked my magic notebook.
Rachel.
I liked my weapon, especially because I could turn it into 2 weapons.
Yeah,
so that was very
really fun to figure out.
I like the visuals for it too.
John.
I liked my customized tattoo. That got to be a story element.
Yes.
That was really fun. Mark.
Yeah, I would say the tattoo that Zach got from Kahu, and then the Bloodwell vial was also from Kahu. Those were probably his favorite.
Nice.
Those.
I already got a tattoo.
We'll kind of, I think, just for the sake of time, skip over the favorite parts of your class, because I think you guys all had really super cool parts of your class.
Yeah.
But I like Tim's. If we were starting a new campaign in this world, which new class race would you want to be in the next game? So, Dealey.
I would still want to be a tiefling because I love tieflings.
You can't be a tiefling. Pick something else.
No.
Okay, fine. It's fine. You can say it.
An ASMR. Or a Triton, the Triton would actually kind of be fun. And then I think if I did a Triton Paladin would kind of be fun, to be honest.
Like that. Rachie.
That was my answer. It's Triton Paladin.
That's fine.
Because before I decided to bring Anais, I was really considering a Triton. I was like, that sounds really fun.
Interesting.
And I was very much going to go that direction until I thought to bring in Anais. Although I will say I would not do an accent because I could barely do an English one. So
you'd be from Tritania. You have to be down under.
Yeah.
I don't talk like them.
Yeah. I'm the loser. I don't know.
That's actually interesting to have Tritania be a lot more central to the story. That's because it's just kind of there, and I just wanted something different.
Yeah, they're just kind of off in the distance. Yeah.
Done.
Class I think it would be fun to try is, even though it's week 1, the barbarian with the fire abilities, Scourge Aesimer, and basically make a grappler who does a lot of chip damage.
Nice. That's fun. I like that.
Good.
Mark.
I honestly don't know. So I'm just going to say I don't know.
That's fair. Yeah, I think you think more on those. You don't like just coming up with something right on the spot. I don't. This is just me. Are there any quotes from the campaign you're 100% going to use in real life? I don't think we really have many of those from this one.
You're weak.
You're weak.
You're weak.
We say that to each
That's
other.
fair. Okay, I like that.
Power.
That's what Mark said too.
I was flipping through my notebook for this, and it's from Zach saying, "Don't be racist, go to sleep." I have that underlined, and it's always stuck with me, and it's probably my favorite one-liner. Just fantastic.
So good. Yeah, because I feel like we have a lot of Zelda. Zelda has a lot of stuff, dopers and all that.
Yeah.
That's fun. Don't be racist, go to sleep. That might be my sign off from now on.
It needs to be a t-shirt.
This is actually one I do think is a good question, so maybe in succinct as we can. Why do you play D&D? What about D&D TTRPGs makes you want to spend 3 years investing in a campaign? We've talked a little bit about some of our interviews with you guys, but what's your why invest 3 years into a campaign?
Well, I feel like we answered this in the TTRPG the other day.
We just talked about it in the D&D.
Yeah, we just talked about it. Collaboration, story-driven, imaginative, creativity, all coming into one. I mean, D&D specifically, because I'm a simple lady with a simple brain, and Pathfinder's too hard for me. Like, that's...
Fair. Anybody with any different answer on that one that they want to chime in on, or?
Well, I said this in the Discord, but my top two are it really helps spur creativity with me. I usually will draw and write because of D&D moments and different things like that. And that's what got me back into it. And then the other reason is just it gives you a safe environment to explore difficult emotions and topics and themes that you might not be able to do otherwise.
Free therapy.
Free therapy.
John, Mark?
Your DM is not your therapist, but it's sort of free therapy.
A lot of the same stuff's been said before, but it also lets me hang out and be with my friends.
Amen.
Yeah, I would say it's good to do with friends, and creativity is good, and it's also satisfying that itch where it's like you're in a video game and it's programmed, like you cannot make this choice, but in D&D you can make the choice and see where it goes. So.
Yeah, but I tell people that all the time when I'm trying to explain. I was like, because I get a lot of escapism with my anxiety and depression, where I'll watch like animes or TV shows, and when I'm done, I'm just like, that sucked. I only had 10 hours because it's only, Game of Thrones is only 10 sessions and they're an hour each. But these are like ongoing and like 3 years. I mean, it's like 500 hours of content. Like, it's insane, right? So that, to me, I like to escape and delve into a world for that long where I can do whatever I want. After all the years have passed and your characters have grown and perspectives change with age, what is the one thing that makes your character the happiest? One, Mara. D.
Family.
I
think Meikai just having a family, somewhere she belongs.
Rachel.
Friends.
Yeah, I love this question, by the way, Mara.
Really
yeah,
good.
I mean, I think just those simple, quiet moments of either seeing her siblings or her parents interacting with each other, or in the future when she's with Zach and has her own children, like just seeing peace and prosperity within her life, I think is a really big deal to her because she knows what it is to not have it. So those bring her a lot of joy now.
Fun.
I think for Kahu, it's knowing that as much as he hated being basically a very good killer as a fighter, he was able to take that thing that he was good at, and even though he didn't love it, he was able to be an important piece of helping give a better world to people where they could, if they wished, not make that same choice.
I like that. Mark?
I would say it's helping other people and empowering other people to be more self-sufficient and take on things themselves.
Nice. Karaku actually had a really nice question. I think this kind of ties into the whole, like, what we take out of it. Because we talk about a lot of bleed over effect from our characters. Something we learned from Gary Kahn. We did talk about a little bit like lessons that we've learned from this campaign and moving forward. But what's something you guys have learned while playing these characters that you think you'll take into your life going forward? I know for me, I know it's a little different being a DM, but I think for me it's learning how to communicate and listen in a way that I think people are coming from a constructive way and not take it so personally, or learn to get past my own self imposter syndrome or like defensive wall, or I don't know if it's pride, like whatever that is that stops me from like, thinking like I'm the worst thing in the world and like they hate me. Like sometimes it's almost like too egotistical to play with, and to just let advice and learning and just better growth come from those conversations instead of like hiding and shying away from that. So that's something that I've learned as a DM and through my NPCs in this one. So, is there anything Meikai that you're taking from something you've learned through Meikai that you're bringing into life?
Not really. Not that I can really think of. I mean, D&D in general has always given me a perspective of like, don't be hasty in like judging or thinking what somebody else is thinking. I mean, that's kind of always been a theme, but I think D&D helps you kind of like explore that with different characters' personalities, especially party composition. So that's just not specific to this campaign, but that's all the campaigns that I've played, playing with various players, but also various PC personalities too.
Thanks for that. AG?
So this one's a little more practical as opposed to like something Anais taught me. But we talked about this, Mike. And I've kind of been pretty vocal about this. I learned through Anais I need to be careful with how I build a character, because poor Anais had nothing. And she had so little, and I didn't give her any time to recover. I didn't give her many people that she immediately trusted. She did trust Bri, but like, not someone that maybe would know how to draw her out quickly. I didn't give her much grit to like push past her fear until way later. So like, I didn't give her much to work with. So a lot of my time with her was just thinking like, I don't know what to do with this girl. I don't know. Like, I got nothing. She's just numb. And so she taught me, which she got better later, but she taught me though, when I'm going into a campaign, I have to have a balance. Like, you can have as much drama and tragedy as you want, but you also have to balance it out with things that are going to keep them going right now, the second you start playing. Because if you don't have that, it really is like you're super dependent on everyone else to like drag you forward. And that
she was the
sometimes
hardest to get to the
fun.
Centaurium. Yeah.
She was,
like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this.
All of it was so hard. Yeah. I think once she became a chosen, it helped a little bit. But yeah, so definitely I've learned to balance a little better because of her. So.
Yeah. That's a good one. No, I really like that one. That's actually how Dav in Mishaps, I decided, I was like, no, he has to have time. Has to have time between this.
That's what I did with Eleonora too.
Or he'd be way too offstandish with that. If he was like, this happened last month, he'd be like, I'm not working with you guys.
Everything's fresh. You didn't even have time to process, and now you're working with new people. No.
Especially in a campaign where I'm like, I have no clue where it's gonna go. So yeah, that's cool. John.
I learned you need to be careful about having big family trees, because Kyle had a big family tree, and it was hard for me to remember all my own family members' names, and I had to always look them up.
Kamala.
Yeah. But I also was able to take a few things I had from other campaigns into this campaign that I felt were in this campaign. I learned worked pretty well, which was I felt I had a decent balance of like, here's a general backstory, but like, let's leave enough open for the DM to tie in. I feel like you'd worked really well with that. And I also felt like, I don't know, I feel like this is my second character that was very much against type. I had a ranger before that was also very much against type, I felt. And I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of good lessons learned that I had, where you can have a character and you can have a story without the class necessarily having to dictate the character or the story. And I just feel like that's a really unique and fun thing about D&D is the class can be there to support a number of things. It doesn't necessarily have to support the attitude of the character.
It can, but it doesn't have to. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. 100% agree with that. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you a lot of days. Yeah. Mark.
Been trying to think. I can't. I was also partially listening to everyone else's answers, so it didn't really help me thinking. So I'm gonna have to pass this through.
Sure. That's a good one. There's some of these that kind of we answered a bit. Like who they're compatible with, who they're with, class combo. Real quickly, do you have a favorite fight from the campaigns?
I liked the 2-part of the Hanasuka one. I thought that was really interesting to have it. We did phase 1 and then phase 2, and I thought that was kind of fun. And then the ending boss fight was really fun. I liked seeing that monstrosity and just going to town on punching and striking you with magic, and just, yeah, that was fun with everybody.
Yeah. Rachie.
Virtus fight, just because it was so unexpected with how that went
Yeah,
down. That was really
that was a
fun.
really fun one.
And trying to like save everyone too. Like there's a lot of people kind of in danger, so that was fun. And I did like the end fight. I thought it was fun. I liked that everyone was just crazy powerful at that point and just blasting away. And I got so much satisfaction out of Layetta just smiting the crap out of Varus the whole time. That was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like just so much damage. It's fun.
Yep. John?
There's a lot of fights I liked, but thinking about the last fight, I thought that one was a lot of fun. I had a ton of fun playing a character that I had built for basically battlefield control purposes.
Yeah, dude.
And
you opened my eyes to D&D. That part of it.
I cannot believe how fun it was to put someone to sleep in a high level
That was
scenario.
so clutch. I loved that.
Travar just was like never an enemy ever. Like you just, dude, counterspell, dude, just go to sleep. Like that, and then you just like putting Jude in a handlock and like stuffing his face into a barrel. Like it's just this like, okay, like he's not strong enough to get out of here. He doesn't have teleportation. Like this will be interesting. So yeah, no, those are fun. Mark.
I always liked kind of using those special things like the counterspell to get out of that one fight was good. The wish to get the Virtus thing. And I really liked that when we were in that tower and I kind of drew in the fire elemental and used that like random stone that I found that you probably didn't even think was ever going to be a thing.
Yep.
And just like dousing out that fire elemental.
So good. That one was a fun one. Yeah. Those are some of my favorite. Those are absolute favorite times when you guys just like pwn things out like unexpectedly. But I think my favorite fight would have been the storm one, where I think in that last round, all four of you had like a setup move where like I think it was like Meikai and Kahu did all the damage to put it into disadvantage, and Nias like brought it down close enough, and then Mark, you had the restoration with your celestial. Like all of you four, like in a round or two, played into the instrumental setup of that fight. So that one was really, really fun to see. The teamwork that you guys have put into these fights was really cool. But I think early on was just like, no, we're doing it to dice, just goes down. And you know, like it was rough early on sometimes. That and just y'all just putting Jafar to sleep is ridiculous. The compatible. We did that. We did moments. The rest of them are a lot of them for me, but we kind of answered a lot of these. My favorite part about the world you created, looking back, would you change anything? I think my favorite part is the crystals, the affinities. That's always just been something I've really just stuck to. Would I change anything? If I started brand new again, I think I'd have more lore and history to the different realms and be willing to have different ages to some of the lore, because I simplified it with like everyone's similar to human age, like only 1,000 years. Like there's not much variation. And it's like a small world. Like everything's really close together. So like I think in a new world, this would be like a continent with more continents in the world surrounding it. But I just wanted to keep it small and I guess like capable to control my first homebrew. So something to kind of like feel like the world's a little bit bigger, I think was something I'd change a little bit. Just because like I felt like there's times where I didn't have room for like dungeons and temples that, well, why would they be there and why would they not be known about in such a short time frame? You know what I mean? Things like that where it's just like, you know, how many of these could be forgotten? So I kind of wrote myself into a corner there. We talked about the Fates thing. Talked about homebrew. What's the best part of streaming a D&D game live compared to just playing in private? On the flip side, was the biggest streaming specific struggle? I know for me, it's just imposter syndrome for sure. And then commitment of a schedule. I think playing offline, it's a little bit like, hey, things got going on. Let's move this. Yeah, we can play on Saturday instead. Let's play on Monday instead. Here you're kind of live also, and you're also as much as we say, hey, we're just playing around the table and who cares if anyone's watching, it's just not the same. You're still on. When the camera's on, you're still playing a little bit to the camera, as much as you try not to. So that's the difference, and that's I think why it is still nice to have private games, even though you want to share the story. So there's that weird balance. So, what about your struggles being on stream? Like, I think for the first or second time, what do you guys? Like, what's your biggest struggle or joy of streaming?
I mean, being pregnant on stream isn't great.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about that too much. We've hinted at it lately, but yeah, this whole end here, you've been pregnant on stream.
I think keeping up sometimes with, day-to-day stuff, schedules, having those times where you're so tired and you're trying not to zone out, and in the most respectful way, you don't want to zone out, but you're just like, my mind is just like, not here right now. I am so tired. And also I think I just keep it to that, I guess. I think that's a challenge, but I really do enjoy streaming because I like seeing the comments and the live reactions, and I love seeing the gifs and like all the support, and I absolutely love that, and I love being able to share the character stories instead of typing it up, and like, because people would be like, oh yeah, I remember watching that moment, that was funny, instead of being like, oh, you had to be there, kind of thing too. So but I like offline just as much as online. I think offline you also have the ability to I know I step away a lot, but I know you have the ability to kind of like step away a little bit easier too, so that's a little bit nicer, especially when you have a puppy. I mean, we've gone through a puppy and pregnancy in this stream, so it's a lot of chaos at times to still stay committed to that despite, life things.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Rachie.
So it may be because I don't DM, but I have very little cons and almost all pros for streaming.
Interesting.
I feel like I'm a very directed player. I want there to be things happening all the time. I want us to go through the story. So I don't like it when people get off topic all the time, or mess around. Sometimes if it's a one shot or something, like, who cares? But I've also been in games where people just go off the rails all the time. So I feel like when you're on stream, it gives you a level of professionalism where it's like, you have to be on target and you have to be in character the whole time. And I like that. It helps me stay immersed a lot more, and I just enjoy it. And that's just more my style than really saying anything else, I think. But I enjoy it. And I also just love sharing stories and moments with people. I did this, in write-ups in other campaigns on Instagram with pictures I drew, and loved having people following along with the story. So this is just like my dream realized, of letting people follow along with the story and characters. I think it's beautiful. I mean, I genuinely think it is a beautiful thing to share stories with people and characters and experience moments together. And I just love it. There's very little cons for me. Sometimes I get a headache. That's it.
That's a good point. Ron?
I enjoyed streaming a lot. This is the first time for me being on a stream and everything like that, but I don't know. I enjoyed being able to have moments, and I felt like when I was having moments, I felt like I was oftentimes just in the moment, and it felt nice to be able to, talk. Like, it feels good when people enjoy your character that you build or enjoy things that you do, right? And I enjoyed being able to share Kahu with people, and it made me very happy when I saw people who liked Kahu's story in return. And so, as a first-time streamer, I feel very blessed with the people we had who watched with us and who gave good feedback, and I really appreciated it, and it was a good experience for me.
How about you, Mark? Because you've been on both ends as a player and a DM.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like it for the most part to stream because I think it's fun to connect people who live across the country and be able to still do things and hang out. And then on top of that, have people who are even further out, like even in other countries, who are watching the stream with us.
So cool. Yeah.
And being a part of it and interacting with us and having their own little jokes and fun things that we can chat about related to D&D in the game. So I enjoy that a lot, and it creates a much bigger feeling game than just sitting around in a room somewhere playing together, which is, it's good on its own too. Like, that's nothing wrong with that, but like, it's fun to have that extra layer to it. There just is like that added pressure and scheduling and all that stuff that adds those more difficult layers to stream games. So that's hard. But...
Did you say that more as a DM though, as a player, or do you still is just kind of committing to a schedule still is just as much stressful to you as a player as a DM?
Well, I mean, there's always gonna be a scheduling layer, but with streaming, you need to have a time when the audience knows that's when they're gonna come watch too. So it's like a whole other person you have to schedule in there as well. So it's more than just the table. So
that's true.
That does make it more challenging when you're trying to plan it out. Because if you're just like, hey, we're streaming Tuesday this week. Okay, we're streaming Thursday. That's hard. Like no one can keep up with that.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think as a player, I absolutely adore streaming. Being a player on streams. I think like you said, it's more focused. I love interacting with chat. I love just people caring about my characters that I never thought they would in the first place. So it bleeds over as a DM where I'm like, oh, you care about the story, or you care about the NPCs. Like, you actually doesn't matter. But yeah, the stress of showing up each week and not just being like, you know what, let's just take it off, and like kind of that last minute sort of like, oh, we've all had bad days, let's just forget this, you know. That's tough as a DM. Or if you're like, I'm someone that I like having like hours before I DM to like sit into the world and review my notes. So if I'm like rushing from work to get to, like I have been in the last couple of months, like it's 8 like that. It's some of the worst times where I'm like, if I have 30 minutes to start, it's just the worst. So yeah, it's so interesting. I think I really do hope that I get to tell another story on stream, and I think it'll be more module based and shorter campaigns starting off, but it'll be interesting. So that's it from the list I saw. It's kind of like, is there anything I missed or anything you guys want to catch up on or anything, or any last minute questions? Gonna open it up.
I feel like there was one Amara said that was really funny that I was going to ask, and then we switched to the speed round, which was, what stereotypical group role do you think your character played within the party? And her examples were the mom, the mess, the comic relief, the party pooper, the jock, etc.
We can end on that one. That one's fun.
I think it's a fun one to end on, yeah.
Sure.
I like that, and I'm glad you brought that one up because that's the one that I had my eye on. I feel like Meikai I kind of expected her to become like a mom type, but I feel like I turned her pretty early on into being more on the comedy side and like the sassy mom type, like kind of a blend between the two. And I don't regret it now, but I really hated it at the beginning. So I was like, this isn't what I wanted to be, but
she was kind of gossip for like a good amount of time. Which was really funny.
Because we would go from really serious moments from the other three to Meikai being like, well, what is she doing? Well, I'm snooping around, and then it becomes like more jokey. And I really, really hated it at first, but it suited her, and I found a nice like
balance
way for her to like present that without being like too over the top. Because I always go to the comic characters, or at least have things, because that's just what I gravitate to. So.
Yeah.
That's it. Raichi.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I guess you could either go like, the quiet one. Also, yeah, I would feel like kind of. I think this was her and Kahu both, but kind of the party glue. Because like Anais was constantly have to translate for what everyone was thinking and feeling, and having to go back and forth between everybody, making sure everyone was good and understood each other. So like that was kind of a big role, like stereotypical role that she had, I think. But also, don't talk to me.
Yeah, real quick as an intercession on that. If obviously we want to play with the four of us going forward and stuff like that, do you guys think you'd build your characters the same way, or do you think there'd be different expectations coming into the game, just kind of knowing how this one played out? Or like, do you think you, like you said, would you build more of a balance into letting people like, you know, like Anais was so oppressed on that? Do you guys think like you've learned like how to maybe build or like have more of a session zero coming into the game to know how to like maybe avoid some of that like isolation from the characters?
I probably just make her more extroverted, or make an extroverted character this time around, because I can usually fix awkward party interactions if you're an extrovert, but if you're an introvert, there's nothing you could do.
Yeah.
So
What, D, anything for you on that side of things?
No, I think the same kind of thing, and just making sure that like if there is a zero session, there's just more talk of like, hey, so like it doesn't have to necessarily just be one person with like tragedy, because that's very unrealistic, because everybody has that in their life. But I think making sure that we're not all sad, depressed babies with recent trauma things, like, and just making sure that it's more like balanced, and then kind of thinking more about like, okay, like what kind of role do I want to fulfill, and kind of keeping that more in mind. So
Done.
I'd probably be a little bit careful about not making my character so somber, especially early on. Felt he was quite well healed towards the end, but a little somber towards the beginning. At least with this group. And then I feel like he was like the Rock, I guess, be the best. Like not necessarily the foundation or anything, but he was like consistent, right? I feel like he was consistently like wanting to he wanted to try to be there for everybody, even though he wasn't always able to be there, didn't know exactly how to help, but he always was trying to do something to kind of help the people around him. And even though he couldn't read them all, he still did his best to read and to kind of offer his assistance the way he could.
Yeah. Anything else on that?
That's what I got.
Answer. Records of the Realms, thank you so much for the follow. Much appreciate it. And wrapping up with our last answer for the night, Zach, Mark, take on all that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like reading through the stereotypes. I'm like, I'm not sure what that would be for Zach, but like,
such an interesting one. Yeah,
it's I don't know. It's almost like he was the masked person, but it's not because like he's choosing to mask it. It's like circumstances are masking him. So, I don't know. Maybe that, but
that's interesting. Or like the reluctant face of the party too. Like I felt like he was like a bookworm and wanting to study and all this stuff, but then he had, like you said, the circumstances on him, but then also like this power and charisma to him that, you know, it was almost like forced into a role that he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, the original concept was like Zach was, prior to things with his family, like very outgoing, very people, like everyone loved him. Like he was the person that was like, oh, it's Zach, yay, and everyone's happy. But because of him being forced to hide and everything, like he turned into a whole different person, like because of everything. So yeah.
Oh, I really love that. That's interesting. Almost like a changeling, but with his own mask, like his personality. Like you're still the same person, you're like forced to become something else. Yeah,
like he was just like bound up, and it was destroying him, just like being trapped in himself. So
I like that. Yeah, it's a really cool, the haunted one throughout the whole thing. Yeah, sweet. Well, I had a lot of fun today. Is there any last questions you guys have for each other or players, or last minute goodbyes from? We've all kind of wrapped up a bunch of it. Yeah, I love all of you guys, and thank you so much for being able to play at the table with you guys and answer all these questions. So we'll go ahead and go back around with any last comments, or also just plug your kind of stuff and where people can find you. While we won't be on Friday streams anymore for a bit, and hopefully people can follow you guys, and we'll all still be in the tavern as well. So if you are hanging out with us, definitely go drop by the Discord. We'll go ahead and have everyone kind of say their final goodbye and bow and what they're in, and then we'll go ahead and raid Hero Zone if they stay on. They're doing a painting party at their game show, because I literally tried to look for like 3 or 4 different games. I was like, how long is it going for? And everyone's like, I'm done. So like there's like no more games being played anymore tonight. But yeah, Dealey, why don't you go ahead and give your last
Tavern and Twitter and Rachel's art stream. I lurk there a lot. And then on Mishaps too, lurking, so you guys can find me there. And then at least for the next couple weeks, wins. But yeah, then I'll be MIA for a little bit. But I think you can still find me on Twitter in the tavern. I'll still be active there at least. Here and there. A little slower, but understandably so. So
I'm excited for you to come back and join us on a future stream for sure.
Yep. And I'll come back to wins too. That's just gonna be a short hiatus, but yeah.
When you see Avon become the big bad, losing Demi again. Rachel.
So dramatic. What was I gonna say? That comment threw me off when I mentioned against Avum's the wind mage now. Anyway, I wanted to say though, just thank you to everybody for hanging out with us for 2.5 years. It always means a lot to me, and I have enjoyed all the fan art and all the comments and discussions over the years, and it's just been really special. So thank you to everybody, just personally. And yeah, so I stream on Mondays at 3:30 CST over at Marquee Gaming. So if you want to come hang out with me during an art stream, please feel free. I have it's always really fun, and we have some fun discussions. And yeah, you'll still find me playing in Lit's game over on YouTube, and you'll find me in Mark's game playing too. So
Perfect. John?
I had a blast. I'm so grateful I got to be here. Grateful I got to play with this group. Grateful we got to tell the story. And it's just another chance to be able to know why I enjoy playing D&D and other tabletop RPGs and being able to share those moments with people. I mean, at the end of the day, the systems are a fun way to make it into a game, but I really, really enjoy having the story and the RP elements and just all of that. Just kind of making something new and unique and combining everybody's thoughts and ideas into something that's its own adventure. So thank you everybody who came and joined us on it. Even if you only came for a little bit, or if you came for the whole thing, thank you so much for showing up.
And last but not least, the man, the myth, the legend, Mark.
Yes. Thank you to all involved in this game. Thank you for watching me in this hair journey. And
It's been epic. I wish I had a screenshot from I almost screenshotted our first ever or one, and only 3 years. We all look like babies compared to now. It's insane.
But yeah, if you want to see Mike still, you can check out our Twitch channel or YouTube on Litz, because he'll still be there even if he's not streaming here. You can see him there, so check him out there.
Definitely check it out this Sunday at 7 p.m. CST on a magical game of Mystical Mishaps, where you, the chat, can join in and make mishaps happen to us as players. It'll be a whole lot of fun. And that's where, we'll be at. And then on Tuesdays for that, are you going to do art stream this week, Rachel? Rachel will be on Market Gaming as well on Monday, 3 p.m.-ish, 3:30 CST on Mondays for her amazing art streams. Go check that out. And yeah, I'll post when I'm live here. I don't think I'm going to stop, but a lot of it's just going to depend on my schedule. So So we'll have some kind of here and there streams with some games that I want to be playing. We'll do some Bardic Brews for world building, maybe some map building, maybe showing off some of our Alchemy RPG or some of the other tools that I want to do. Maybe some more YouTube stuff. Potentially some projects I have in mind. I just don't know if I can commit to them. So yeah, we'll tease some of that. But we'll always be there in the tavern. And thank you guys so much for this journey on Fates United. So we can finally put a nice little bow on it. And all this will be VOD'd on YouTube if you want to go subscribe. Follow that. Future content will be on there as well. Just as a fun little time capsule. So again, thank you guys so much. I love all of you, all the friendships we created over the past 3 years. I'm excited to see the friendships we continue to build forward. That being said, one last time, we're going to go ahead and send off the stream with a raid. We'll go see Hero Zone. They're kind of wrapping up their night, kind of like Mike Disney doing like a really cool painting stream. So we'll go ahead and raid them with all the love and respect that you guys show us here on the Bardicdice channel. So go ahead and show the love and respect over to Hero Zone and everyone in that chat as well. So go ahead and send our hellos, and I love you, and we'll see you when I see you. Love you guys. Bye.